Welcome to another episode of Chasing Labels. I'm your host, Stephen Billings, and with me, as always, is your other host, Andrew Cabral. How you doing, man?
Doing good, Steven. Doing good. We are back here once again for another hopefully exciting episode, hopefully fun-filled. At least it's fun for us. We are right on the cusp of greatness. This is
Ah,
spy number 99.
yes.
So
I was
we got
hoping
99 problems and all of them are movie related.
99 bottles of beer on the wall. 99 bottles. Yeah. No, it's exciting to get to the triple digits. I mean, we've been in the triple digits in general for doing podcasts, but for this podcast to make it there is great. You know, it's the first podcast we've gotten that far with. So it's like an exciting thing, and yes, we are doing a special event for that 100th episode. It'll be next Sunday, May 21st at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're gonna do this show that we usually do, the normal rundown, chasing labels, and then with that, we might. I haven't talked to Andrew about it yet, but we might do like maybe a special segment, something like a list or something fun. And then with that, of course, we hope to have people participating, joining us in the chat, talking with us, giving us their feedback on some stuff. And then hopefully I'm sending out a bunch of links to previous guests, and hopefully we get to see some old faces from the past. We've had roughly over 50, a little over 50 guests, different people on this show as guests, and hopefully we get to see a lot of some old faces. That'd be nice.
Yeah, I didn't realize how high the number was until I started thinking about it, where it had to be
Yeah,
about half or somewhere
yeah,
around there. Not including people who've
returned.
made an
Oh,
appearance, that
yeah,
returned, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be the first time we've really done the show in a live format. For the most part, I mean, we are going to try to get in all of the upcoming movie releases as well as having guests
and
jump
don't
in and out.
don't get used to that, because we're not doing a live show every week. It's not going to happen. You know my
No,
stance on this.
Steven has put his foot
I've
down,
put my foot down on live announcement show every week. I mean,
squashing it.
first of all, I don't love my internet connection right now, so I wouldn't be confident in it being shitty as it is anyway. But um, I just like doing the announcements without the pressure of the live chat always being there, and like
Yeah, not only
you know
that, but doing things live, it does add an extra layer of um, pressure and I
it
don't know
does. I would get
on
over
you
that.
as a creator. You know,
I would get over the pressure of it, but like it would be like it's more about just knowing that I can edit something if something goes wrong, or if there's like a glitch in the internet, that it doesn't cause the whole stream to go bad. And like I said, if I had more confidence in my internet connection, I would be like maybe a little bit more down for it. But it's
yeah, that
it,
lack of control
I
is
just I
too
I
much.
like pre-records, and then we could edit things and add advertisements at the beginning easier, and just it's just a better workflow for me. So but I mean, this will be a fun, like, little, and we do the unwatched pile live, but this will be a little one-off special event for chasing labels, and we hope you enjoy being able to hopefully come in and participate and interact with us, and doing that show and talking about some Blu-ray releases. And but yeah, so this is spy number 99, and we of course have another great guest for you this week. And this week we have Justine Smith, who is a screen editor and also is a curator for the underground section at the Fantasia Film Festival, which is one of the great film festivals in the world. I mean, it's one of the biggest in the world, international film festivals up in Canada. And yeah, it was great talking to her. She's got a great personality, super fun to talk to. Um, she's, of course, she's a big horror fan. She likes to talk about horror movies. We kind of get once we get past talking about her, what she does, we kind of had some fun discussions about just movies in general, and we're getting into some of her favorite horror films. And that I remember her talking about how she a lot of times only watches the first movies in a series, and like hasn't watched a lot of the sequels. And we were like trying to figure out which ones that maybe she had seen, and trying to figure out, like, you need to see the sequel to that one. I think I remember, we talked about Texas Chainsaw. I was like,
We did talk about
yeah,
that
yeah,
because they do oftentimes the first films tend to be the best films, and then
usually
there may be certain, decreases
sequels.
as time goes on for the
But
most
some
part.
of the sequels end up being actually just as good, if not better. Like,
That does end up happening.
for instance, like Evil Dead 2. I mean, a lot of people would say Evil Dead 2 is the best of the
Yeah, there
series.
are
You
certain
know,
exceptions. I mean, Dream Warriors, which is the third Nightmare on Elm Street film, is
well, I would say
really
New
really good.
Nightmare. New Nightmare is like
Okay, New Nightmare, if you
pretty
want to
high
make
up there, I
that
think,
argument.
for a
Yeah,
lot of people in that series. Some people really like Gremlins too. You know,
the new batch.
yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah, so it really all depends on your perspective and all that kind of stuff. But completely respect everyone's decision when it comes to however they want to watch
of
movies or
course,
franchises. But it was really cool getting to talk to Justine, getting into what her work entails at Fantasia Fest and all of that stuff. And we also really got to talk about um, if I remember correctly, the just the movie industry in Canada in general, how the
yeah, yeah.
differences between here and there, and we have Hollywood down here. They have a different set of parameters and rules and how things are funded in Canadian film, and we get into a lot of that cool stuff as well. Really fascinating and awesome discussion.
Yes, most definitely. So relax your ears, settle down, get yourself something to drink, and here is our conversation with Justine Smith.
And so, with us this week, coming from Canada, and of course, we were just telling her off mic, we're sorry we have to do this recording so late because they're in our time zone at 9 o'clock at night. But we are so happy to have Justine Smith joining us on this podcast today. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Our pleasure. You're a name I've heard around, and when we had Alexandra Hella Nicholas on, she messed up your name, and so that was definitely spotlighting it. I like to just shout her out. She'll think that's funny, but yeah, I've noticed recently you've been popping up on some special features and some physical media. Recently, when we talked to Alexandra, we talked about Gina, and you did some work on that, and then I've also seen that you've done some work on you did one of the films in the Twisting the Knife set. I think it was Nightcap.
Yeah,
Did you do? Yeah,
exactly.
you did an audio commentary, I believe, on that one, and
hmm
then you did Videophobia, which is a Blu-ray I got, but I haven't watched it yet, and you did some work on that one. And then, of course, you're a writer. You're a film writer. You've worked at many different outlets, but one of the main ones is Cult MTL, and then of course you're one of the curating people over at the doing the underground stuff over at Fantasia Film Festival. So that's great. That's great that we just had Lisa Dreyer on from Fantastic Fest. We haven't released the episode yet, but we just interviewed her, and I just love the film festival atmosphere. And I love anybody involved in. I love that because I've been to one film festival in my life, and probably the only one because I now have a family,
Say it,
and
Stephen.
will
You know you got
never
to
be
bring it
able
up.
to go to one again probably. But I just love that whole vibe and that whole atmosphere, and let me stop talking and
Yeah,
let you
let's let
talk.
our guest talk about herself and all of her things.
So yeah,
I mean,
talk a little
yeah.
bit more about what I missed in that little shabby introduction.
I mean, you touched on a lot of it. I do a lot of freelance writing. In Montreal, I also am on the programming committee of a micro cinema. So we have
Oh,
a
okay,
cafe and 50. I never remember if it's 52 or 58 seats. It's really tiny, but it's very very nice.
that's awesome. I like that.
And yeah, I mean, as you guys mentioned before, I also write porn. That's you have to do a little bit of everything to make a living these
That's
days.
cool.
So
Yeah.
Of
I
course.
do everything.
Well, I mean, that's a thing we definitely are. We realize about a lot of the contributors to the physical media that we spotlight is that most people can't make a real living out of just doing this in one way. Like you have to get many micro jobs everywhere to keep the lights on. Like you gotta
Yeah,
write
you
for
have to
this
be
outlet.
a jack of all trades.
You got to do a
Yeah.
commentary here. You got to do a porn article here. You got to, you got to do your curation for the festival. You got to keep. It's a hustle. It's a
Yeah,
really a hustle.
freelancing is very much self-explanatory. You're free, but you gotta like sell yourself
Yeah,
to outlets and people and places and things, and also like really be your own marketing and hype person. It's a lot of there's a lot of crossover with what we do here on Chasing Labels, where share it on social media like crazy and all that kind of
no,
stuff.
we don't do enough of that.
We
I'm,
don't do enough of it because you also I don't know about you, Justine, or even Steven here. It's a little awkward to be like, "Hey,
Yeah.
come and listen. Hey, come and read. Hey, do this."
I just
Because
I like
it
to
could
let
have
the
the reverse
podcast
effect.
speak for themselves. If we can
Mm.
do, if we can get the right people to hear it, then it'll do its thing. But it'll get around. But because I just don't like social media is a toll, but I don't get social on social media, unfortunately. How about you, Justine? Are you very social on social media?
I
I don't.
am actually, but
Yeah, are
I
you?
take it. I try not to take it seriously because it's so
Yeah,
easy to just get like totally bogged down. It's an incredibly depressing place.
it can
But I
be.
try to have fun with it. Like I wouldn't say I use it that much for work compared to some of my colleagues. You can easily build such a huge following just by having like a big take or an important point of view on every single topic, every single trailer. I'm not really interested in that, which seems counterintuitive because social media really benefits from like instant reactions.
Yeah,
But I just kind of use it for fun, for silly things, to interact with people I know, people I don't know,
yeah,
just to discover things. Like most of the articles I find through Twitter. So I do think it has a lot of value, but I also think you have to like take a step back sometimes. If you're angry on Twitter, I don't think that's healthy for you. I don't think it's healthy for your life, for your family, for your loved ones. Just you have to like log off if that's the case.
yeah. I would assume as being a film writer, a critic, that long form thoughts on things or what you want. You want to hear, like, if you don't want to hear people's like couple little thoughts through a Twitter post to like explain things that they're mad about. You want to, you when you need to talk about something, it needs to be, you know, out there. It needs to be. I mean, honestly, I that's why I like the podcasting, because you can really get your thoughts out there. You can really talk about it. You can explain yourself, and it's good for discussion. It's better than just typing a few little characters and hoping to get. I've seen people just get upset for trying to get into to bring up important things on Twitter, and I'm like, and then they get bashed for it, and then people getting on them. And I'm like, what did you expect? Nobody's going to have a real meaningful conversation on Twitter. I'm
Hmm.
sorry, it's not. It's
It,
rare.
it's very difficult to get out any nuance in such a short
Yeah,
form. You know what I mean? And even in longer articles, sometimes that nuance is lost. I mean, it really all depends on the medium in which someone is digesting it, because people can interpret things in different ways, even if that's not the intended ways. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Someone can read an article and it's supposed to be taken one way, and they read it in a completely different other way.
yeah,
I mean, especially with movies. Movies are so um not digested, but um like torn apart or
Hmm.
analyzed very thoroughly in many ways. It's very interesting how that goes. But Justine, I do want to ask you, like, how did you get started with all of this? Kind of go back to your origins, as we like to do, and your childhood, growing up and loving movies, if that is was indeed the case.
Yeah, I mean, I did grow up loving movies, and I was very lucky that I lived in like a duplex with so we lived upstairs, and my great aunt and my grandfather lived downstairs, and they were like my whole family was like really into classic Hollywood, so we had like so many VHS tapes of mostly musicals, but a lot of films from that era. And then when I was in high school, I kind of rekindled that love and got really deep into really loving cinema through the library because you could rent as many movies as you wanted for free. And as a kid, as much as I loved like going to the video store and getting a video every week, the cost of it could be prohibitive. So like we were like when we were really young, we would go to the local video store and get one movie a week or one video game, you know.
Yeah.
And then suddenly when I'm like, oh, I can go to the library and I can get 6 a day, it was like, it changed everything for me. And at some point in high school, I started to write reviews. I had a blog. And around, I guess, 2007 or 2008, I started to write for other people's websites, but mostly for free. So I started at Twitch, which became Screen Anarchy at some point. It may have had one or two transitions between then. I wrote for a local publication called Sound on Site, which no longer exists. And then sometime around 2014, I started to get paid for my writing, but like very slowly. So it was like 2 articles a year that got paid a little bit of money. And slowly I built that into a bit more. I wouldn't say like I make a huge amount of money from film reviewing or film criticism. It's like it's not particularly lucrative, as I'm sure you guys figured out too. It's hard to make a living, particularly if you're not staff. And as a Canadian as well, like the limitations of working within my country is pretty tough. Like if I
Mm,
were to only write for Canadian publications, like I could not be a writer. It would be impossible. There just aren't enough jobs.
yeah. Yeah, that seems to. I mean, that's I hear that a lot about a lot. I mean, even in America, it seems that people can't just write for one outlet. It's not. It's typically a list of like three or four, that you're kind of rotating out and you're getting articles every once in a while. And the thing that you fight against a lot of times is getting kind of shoehorned into certain type of things to write about. I hear that a lot. They get looked at as the person that talks about horror, or the person that talks about this. So do you find that as a challenge? Do you get kind of feel like you get kind of, put into a box of only getting to asked to write about certain genres, or is that a challenge for you?
Honestly, it doesn't not particularly with me.
Uh,
It's actually very rare that people approach me to write things.
okay.
So I'm doing most of the pitching, so I get to choose mostly what I write.
Uh-huh.
And I would say, like, in the rare cases that I do get asked because I have a specialty, it's like sex and cinema, which I just enjoy doing, so I don't feel shoehorned. Sometimes horror, but like considering I work for a horror film festival, it's a genre film festival, mostly horror.
Yeah.
Very rare that people
Yeah.
ask me and I know a lot about horror, so I find that unusual. And then a lot of stuff is Canadian and Quebec, which I also don't mind doing because I'm happy to support local cinema and
Yeah.
it's really a passion of mine to share it. So, and again, I wouldn't say it happens that often, like less than once a year for each of
Yeah.
those. So it's not like I am typecast.
Well, you bring up, sex and cinema, and honestly, that's I feel like a subject matter that needs more voices. It's one that's always gets kind of depending on what part of the world you're in, especially America. We tend to stay away from sexual things in cinema, and so I think if that's something you're well rounded in, it's good that you're getting yourself more out there, for physical media releases too, because there's a lot of labels that like Severin, they put out a lot of sex films, and Vinegar Syndrome, of course, and so I'd love to keep it. That's good for you. Hopefully they reach out to you to do more of their stuff, because I think it's just something that doesn't get enough attention. And so tell us, where did the beginnings of that subject matter for you start? Like what got you in that particular interested in that particular sector?
That's a tough question. I guess when it goes back to high school again, my name is Justine, and one of the most famous erotic novels of all time is called Justine by the Marquis
Yeah.
de Sade. And so that kind of came up pretty early in my life. And so I was kind of into the Marquis de Sade in high school, which I guess is like kind of strange, but it's also a very high school thing to be into, I think. And at some point, it's just something that's always interested me. I've always been interested in films in general that are transgressive, and that doesn't always mean sex. It often can be just horror movies. Like horror movies is among my first loves when it comes to kind of becoming a cinephile, like falling in love with movies in the first place. And I always was particularly attracted to movies that are really just like outside of the realm of acceptability. I really like
Yeah.
hardcore violence or things. I always like, even when I talk about Fantasia, like what I always try to explain is what I'm looking for when I'm watching films are things I've never seen before, and or like experiencing feelings that are incredibly uncomfortable, and that often exists within the realm of sexual representation or um, anything really to do with like things people don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
So tearing bodies apart or making love, I guess they're kind of the same thing.
Yeah, yeah, no, I have the same fascination. I haven't gone down the rabbit hole too far yet, but the more I've gotten into different types of cinema, the more I want to, as you say, find things that make me maybe uncomfortable. You know, but we bring this film up a lot, but when I finally got around to watching Irreversible, and just the sexual, the the rape in that, the rape scene. We talked about that with uh, Alexandra. You know about how films like that can make you uncomfortable or make you if you can relate to a situation like that of rape or something that, even though for some people it can be triggering, it can also be cathartic. And there are things, of course, other, I haven't experienced that, but there are other things in my life that I see in film that do cause me to have like a relatability, and don't necessarily make me feel uncomfortable, but they make me feel that catharticness, that I'm not
Mm.
alone, and that it's experienced by a lot of people. And so I am with you. I not only the discovery of just finding what I consider to be good films, but just finding stuff that I've never seen, and trying to find a way to, you know, build it up in my library. I call it my library. I have all these films, and just trying to find other things to educate myself. And so what when it came to your early, you say horror was kind of your first love. What were some of them first horror films that kind of really took you and drew you in, and really made you more interested in the genre?
I would say it started with something like very simple, like The Birds by Alfred
Yeah.
Hitchcock, which I still find is very scary. Like it's not like viscerally scary, but there's something so taking this like very mundane thing, which are birds, and
I
making
think birds
them
are scary.
birds are scary. Man,
Yeah.
I would like I feel like I'm constantly almost being hit by a pigeon. Like I just like they're like getting lower and lower. I think they're going for the
Is
kill.
that a
I don't
problem
trust
in
them at all.
Canada? Is that a problem in Canada? Pigeons are just.
I think it's a growing problem. I don't know. I feel like I don't know what's going on with the pigeons.
Well, I
So
think
We
Hitchcock would agree with you. I mean, just the idea is that yeah, the concept behind it, I think, is more frightening in general. Like you're saying, it's just like
Are you saying you own that new Birdemic trilogy set from Severin? Is that one that you're going to definitely buy?
I've never
Because
seen Birdemic. I've never
well,
even seen any of them.
we,
well,
we watched them to talk about them on the
for the show,
show,
yeah.
and there's something.
Well,
But
it takes that concept of the birds and kind of dials it up to an even more visceral, horrific idea. You know what I mean? It's yeah, it's very interesting you mentioned Alfred Hitchcock just in general because that was kind of like an early think. I think for me as well, just Alfred Hitchcock because he's known as the master of suspense, but suspense and horror kind of go hand in hand,
Hmm.
or like the idea of um, building up that anxiety in an audience member or viewer, and then kind of having that climactic payoff. Like that's always kind of fascinating to me. But please go on before I go on a tangent.
yeah,
Well, I watched a lot of Alfred Hitchcock when I was young. Even my parents showed me a couple. Like we watched Rear Window. I think I was like 10. So like they're kind of horror adjacent, but I think it's kind of like a nice entry point.
yeah.
I was obsessed and still am with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh,
I think
speaking of that, I
Yeah,
have
Steven, show it off,
I
please.
have it right here. Look at that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
it's
that's beautiful.
beautiful. So
Yeah,
I just like I'm so it's like one of my like film obsessions. I think it's like lightning in a bottle in film form. I just think it's so horrific, and it really still stays scary. And I think a lot of it is that it is so beautiful as well. Like I think that it's really underestimated is like the way where they put the camera and the way they edit. I always now I remember I've seen it so many times. It's one of the movies I've seen the most in my life. But for a while, I would always forget in that like opening sequence in the van where they would cut to like the cows and all of these things. It's like these little ingredients that all add up to this real sense of like almost panic before anything truly horrific happens, that I just think is amazing. And the ending, I just like, it's just the most beautiful film ending of all time.
Talk about cathartic. That ending, just in the back of a truck, just screaming, because how
Yeah.
else does one process the
It's one of
events
the
of that movie?
it's one of the best screams of all time too. Like she's like a scream artist,
Mm.
just gorgeous.
That
And
is
horrific.
an art form, because some people just can't get that. They just don't have it. Like, it's like,
Well,
I don't
yeah, I
believe
mean,
that you're actually scared here. But that, yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I literally just put it in because I had to I had to look at
check it
that
out.
new transfer, and it looked fantastic.
Yeah, it's
So
like
yeah,
the end of Brian De Palma's it's a blow up or blowout,
blowout.
Mhm.
Yeah,
and he just keeps uttering good scream because he finally gets that good scream. I won't spoil how, but I'll just say that gets that good scream for the horror film. What do you? I just have to ask you, since you're talking about Texas Chainsaw, what do you think about Texas Chainsaw 2?
I've
Because
never
it's
seen
still
it. I this you know
oh
what?
Whoa.
I have like this weird thing where I don't see a lot of like the second or third movies in franchises. Like people used to make fun of me. Like
good idea.
I saw the Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade for the first
Yeah.
time like 2 years ago. Like I
Hey,
just
you just
maybe it's
move on.
that
You move on. You move on.
Yeah, you just.
yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I mean, notoriously, a lot of horror sequels are not very good. So if anything, you're probably
But
dodging
I've heard
something.
so many fun things about Texas Chainsaw 2. I know at Fantasia we had like a secret screening of it when we had the first restoration. Like Toby Hooper was there.
Yeah.
And I did not get to go see it, so that was like on me. I could have seen it in the cinema, which would have been super cool with Toby, but it's life, you know, you
Yeah.
can't make everything.
Yeah,
But that was actually one of my priorities. I would really, really love to watch it. And I'll get to it soon.
Yeah,
I would
that
love to hear
Severin
what
disc
you think
is
about it.
yeah, that Severin
Yeah,
disc
because
is good. I mean, not Severin, but Vinegar Syndrome. I
Vinegar
said,
Syndrome, but
yeah,
it's because it's so diametrically different than the first one. So just from getting the perspective of someone who's such a big, you know, a fan of the first film, I was just curious what you'd think of something that's very much the complete opposite, yet made by the same director, which is
yeah.
fascinating because oftentimes you don't get to see a director do a follow up to their original hit film. I mean, John Carpenter never made another Halloween film.
Hmm.
I mean, he was involved tangentially in the newer ones that just came out, doing the score and such and being around it, but it wasn't really
That's
his
the
work.
that's the thing I respect about John Carpenter the most, even though he's kind of a grump, but like, it's like he if he doesn't want to do something, the money's not going to bring him back necessarily. I mean, I know he likes money. He continues to do these things that keep his franchise. He'll sell his stuff to somebody else to do it. He didn't care, but like, for him to
Mm.
come back and do it, it's important that it needs to be good. Like, he won't do it unless he thinks there's a story to be told. Otherwise, he's just going to keep letting other people do their versions of it, and he's okay. He's like, yeah, just cut me the check. It's fine. Like, it's fine, but I've always respected him for that, because he could have, somebody could have tried to talk him into doing, you know,
Yeah, he could
mo-
have cashed in.
more
I mean, how
a
many
sequel to
Halloween
the
sequels?
Thing, or a sequel to the.
Yeah, how many Halloween sequels did we get where he could have done any one of
Yeah.
those? Or like you said, the thing being, we did get
Well,
a.
of course, nobody liked that movie at first, so
Yeah,
yeah,
that's another thing. We're talking about things in hindsight. You know
yeah.
what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, and of course, there was eventually a Thing prequel movie that they came out with. Remember that one, Steven?
We talk about
Um,
in recent times where they
yeah,
went
recent
back and
times,
yeah, yeah,
and they went back and did that. That seems to be a trend where we're going back to the world
yeah.
in a
They did it
different
for
way.
Hannibal Lecter too. Hannibal Rising. You
Yes,
remember
yeah, they
that?
did do
Yeah.
that. I mean, that's kind of very interesting. Um, but back to Justine before we go off on
We're going
other
down
things.
she likes horror. We're going down
That's very
we're
true,
going
but
down
I
a
just
rabbit
mean
hole.
like
No,
we
I'm
should
just
get
kidding.
her input on things.
Yeah. So what other horror films you got? Texas Chainsaw Massacre. What else? What else were you
I
really
mean, a
into?
lot of classics. The Exorcist, I was
Of
super,
course.
super into, and I was super scared by it. Especially and then I read the book, and the book scared me so much I had to put it down. The Ginger Snaps, I was obsessed with Ginger Snaps. That was like a
Yeah.
very
Is it?
uh teen. It was like around. I was like around the right age, I think, for it.
Yeah, that's so. I think it's underrated, to be honest.
Is that you think one of the best werewolf stories? You think there's a better one?
I think it's my favorite, but
It's
it's
your
like I
favorite.
have such a soft spot for it, but I do think it holds up. I do think it's very funny,
Yeah,
and the gore is really good for what they have because it's like a small budget Canadian film. It's like they're not working with too much, and it's really those two performances though. I think it's and even the supporting cast, like it's a really solid movie that I think just holds up really well to multiple viewings and holds up over time too. Like even to this day, I think it has something special, and it's very strange to me that even though it has these two sequels, but I feel like a lot of movies didn't try to replicate it, even though I feel as though like for so many people I speak to who did make horror movies after 2000, particularly in Canada, particularly women, it's like it is a huge reference point, but I can't really say like, oh, it had this like huge impact on the way people made movies because it kind of just nailed it. Like I
yeah.
think it just like did it so well.
Are you a fan of? I'm a big fan of The Descent. You like The Descent?
I like The Descent. I don't love it. Like I
Oh,
actually
well,
prefer. I know.
no, it's
I don't
a.
know. It's like, but I think part of it. I love the first half,
Uh,
and I find it it's like so viscerally horrifying. Like I'm never going in a cave. Like you
Hell
couldn't
no.
pay me.
No, no, thank you.
You could not pay me to go into a cave, especially like a cave like that.
Not even,
No
not
No.
even,
fucking
the, not even
way.
the big open part of it. I don't even want to begin. None of that stuff. I don't even. Why would you want to go through the little tunnels like that? No, it's stupid.
Yeah, spelunking does not seem fun to me.
I
Being
don't
in cramped underground caverns. No,
I
thank you.
never want to die. I don't want to do anything that if I die, it's embarrassing. Like it's like one of those things. It's like, and I'm like, you know what? Like I'm on the record saying that like it would be embarrassing for me, not for everybody. Like if you're really into it and like this is your life and you want to go into caves and you're saving people and that's your whole thing.
Oh yeah,
Me,
yeah.
I'm
It's
none of those
different. Yeah.
things. If I go into a cave, I'm not experienced. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm scared. If I die, it's embarrassing because I shouldn't be in a cave. Like it just is. It's. I just think it's a fact. It should not happen.
Yeah. No, yeah, just yeah. We don't want to die doing something that we've maybe said on a podcast that we should never be there. You know, we've
Exactly.
obviously said that we should not be doing that, and it's now really on the record that if we ever find Justine obituary and that she died in a cave spelunking accident, you know, then
She
she
kind of
messed up
deserved
somewhere.
it.
She messed up somewhere. Um,
Well,
somebody really talked her into it, but
yeah,
yeah,
someone must have paid her a significant amount of money to do it.
yeah, but
Uh,
yeah, so yeah, any other ones you got Ginger Snaps, Texas Chainsaw, you know, The Exorcist. The one when you bring up The Exorcist, and I know a lot of people were big fans of that third Exorcist film, so that's one you maybe need to get around to as well if you
I've
haven't seen
seen the
it.
third one. I've never
Okay,
seen the
you have
second
seen
okay.
that
one.
one.
I haven't seen the
Okay,
second one though. I've seen parts of it. It used to be on TV all the time, like late
okay,
night television, The Exorcist 2, and I was I guess I still am. With Richard Burton. He's in
yeah,
it, right?
yeah,
Yeah, so
Yes.
I'm like
absolutely, yeah.
but I was always like I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to ruin Richard Burton or The Exorcist." But I know some people who like The Exorcist too. I think it's
Okay,
like very campy, right? It's like
it's an
it's not a
interesting horror franchise. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's an interesting. It often does get overlooked for the third film. The third film isn't the third film directed by the author of the book, I
Yeah,
believe
the
Peter
third one's
Brady.
good. The third one is really unsettling, and it's a departure. And I think a lot of the good horror sequels, you kind of have to do something a little different. Kind of talking about like even the Texas Chainsaw Massacre too. Like I know it's even tonally incredibly different.
Yeah.
Um, I think that that's like the key to success. Is like you kind of take the elements that make it integral and just reinvent it a little bit. And The Exorcist 3 is really creepy, but it's like very thoughtful
Yeah.
and reflective.
Yeah,
I think
I
it's like
think a
really
big
great.
yeah, I think a big example is Evil Dead. Evil Dead
Yeah.
for small beginnings, and then they kind of remake it, but it's got like even more humor and even more just weirdness in it. And then of course that third movie really
Army of
changes.
Darkness.
Yeah, Army of Darkness really changes it up.
Yeah,
And
I find myself being more of a fan of Army of Darkness out of the trilogy. Oh,
yeah,
that's the one I rewatched the most, I would say.
yeah,
I mean, yeah, the first Evil Dead film is straight horror, like to the bone, like straight horrific, and the second one is a horror comedy. And this genre kind, and then the franchise kind of took that horror comedy vibe and just went with it,
and then
even up to this
Fetty
day.
Alvarez is remake
brought it
was
back.
back to that straight up horror. Like,
I was
yeah.
actually talking about that movie the other day, and because it's the 10-year anniversary of the Fede
Oh, okay.
Alvarez Evil Dead film, and I was like, I still wish that they would have made a sequel to it because they set it up for a sequel,
Well,
and then they did Ash vs Evil Dead, and they were just like, we're just gonna go with this now.
Evil
And
Dead
then
Rise is coming out, and
yes,
I don't know if it's gonna have any reference to that last movie, but I don't know. I mean, I'm interested in that. Have you heard anything good about that new Evil Dead Rise,
Yeah, I think
Justine?
it's played a little bit, and I do think that some people really like it, but it's also like again, as someone who goes like works at horror festivals, I don't trust buzz on horror films
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a tough
because
one. Yeah,
well, it's because
horror buzz is tough. Yeah.
because usually the early screenings are shown to horror fans. Horror
yeah,
fans are, as
it,
you know, just very specific taste. You know what I mean? It'll be great to them, but how is it going to play to people who are maybe not quite horror fans, or maybe kind of more mild horror fans, or
yeah.
something like that? It's a different perspective.
It's kind of like the Disney reactions, like when you have the really early screenings of the new Marvel movie or the new Star Wars. It's like I'm always a bit apprehensive because there's that like fine line between punditry and fandom. I do think it's like I don't want to like disparage these critics because I do think that horror critics are way more niche and it's not the same thing as like industry professionals, and like where they're what they're interested in is like you see in the work that they do, they really just go in depth in it. They're like very like the most dedicated fan base. I like of like speaking of like physical media, if you want to see a group that loves physical media and is gonna like go to the death to save it, it's the horror fans. Like
Oh
they
yeah.
are above and beyond, so it's like I'm apprehensive, but it's also because like I've been burned so many times. Like I just want to
Oh yeah,
keep my expectations low.
I was literally just going to say that where I've heard both sides of the things happen. I've heard early screenings being like, "Oh, this movie is amazing, incredible, best movie that's upcoming," and
I
then the
never
buzz
believe
is really
anybody
hot
that
for it.
says that though.
Heard
It didn't matter
that's what
what the
I've heard,
movie is.
and then it comes out and it gets trashed by critics and people
Hmm.
alike, and then all that. And then I've heard the opposite, where this is a terrible mess, and they had to do reshoots because it was such a mess, and and the screenings didn't like it. But then it comes out and people love it. So I've heard of both things
It's
happen.
yeah. You just got to go see it for yourself,
Yeah, make
ultimately.
up your own mind.
We have brought it up a couple times. You working for Fantasia Film Festival, and so please tell us how you got worked into doing that.
It's a long story. Actually, the first writing I ever did was for like as a critic was for Fantasia. It was the first film festival I ever attended. I live in Montreal, so it's also here, so it's not that much of a
Perfect.
burden. And yeah, exactly. And I think it was like almost 10 years just covering the film festival that eventually someone offered me. They did a shortly lived television show, and I did that.
I saw
And
your videos on YouTube
oh
of you.
no.
It's cool. I mean, it's fun. It's a cool thing, though. It's cool that you're having discussions about certain filmmakers. I saw the one you did on John Waters, talking about John Waters stuff.
Oh,
It's
you're bringing up my keywords now.
I know, yeah, yeah.
I mean, literally, I've got Pink Flamingo sitting next to me at all times,
Uh,
just just as motivation. Um,
Just motivation, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I mean, that's I mean, it's fun. It's a fun thing that you were doing there. I'd love to see you keep doing stuff like that. So
yeah, I don't mind. It's like it's always that thing. It can be awkward to see yourself on camera, and
sure,
it's always like the change. And then so I did that for a while, and then at some point, someone offered me. It was like Mitch, who does he's like I think he's the official title is like creative director, but he's also the head programmer for the international section. And so I kind of joined a committee, and then I eventually got the underground section. I don't believe I know it was in 2020 because I had like the first 2 years as a programmer. None of my films screened in a movie theater, so this will be my second year with films in a theater. So that'll be really cool.
yeah, yeah.
nice.
So go through the process of what your day to day, if you can, with what you do when the festival's, in its when it starts and when what you do you host you also host some of the screenings and things like that.
Yeah, so Fantasia is actually incredibly long for a film festival. It's like around 20 to 25 days. So it's a month. It's very, very,
Yeah.
very time consuming. So on a normal, our screenings start depending on the day, but like they can start as early as 11 a.m. But I would say most weekdays closer to 3. And I am presenting films. If we have guests, I'm sometimes working with them. And there's often stuff like, especially with my section, because I am very rarely dealing with stars or big names. They're films that are a bit harder to sell to an audience because you can't be like, this is the new John Carpenter, because they're
Yeah. Yeah.
like, these are people who've never made movies before, and this movie was made for $10,000 in
Yeah.
someone's backyard or someone's garage, which is a cool story. And sometimes like that's enough to get people to go see something, but they have to know that,
Yeah.
so a lot of it is also working with like the social media team or the publicity team to try to get people aware of what's playing. And then I do present movies, so films from my section, but I also do other people's sections because I still help, particularly with the international selection. I work with them, and sometimes like other sections as well. I think it's like we're a relatively small team and we're all very close, and we're all very supportive of each other's films. So a lot of times, like if somebody like in another section knows I love a particular film or I'm available, like I will present that as well,
Yeah.
and often host like the Q&As or sometimes other little events. But it's like it changes from day to day, but there's a lot of that. It's super fun. I like
Yeah,
Oh,
I
It's
was
I
just
super
gonna
agree.
great.
I was just gonna say it must be so. I was gonna ask you about how was the prep time to pull on or to put on the festival. Do you guys like take like a whole year from the time the last one ends and then just
Yeah,
go right into prep for the next one?
more or less, actually. So I would say we start to receive submission. So we finish like our schedule's been changed a little bit again because of the pandemic. So we've kind of like switched around a little bit, like so we're a little later than we used to be. But we end usually in August. So early to mid August, depending on the year. And we start to open up submissions in October now, I think.
Hmm.
So there's like a month and a half, but in that month and a half, there's actually 3 major festivals. So there's Fantastic Fest,
Yeah.
there's TIFF Toronto, and then there's Stitches in Spain. Although for Fantastic Fest and Stitches, like a lot of the time, we're not getting films from there, but it's mostly certain members of the team. I've never been to either one of those. Certain members of the team, they go there. It's still like they're still part of the like the networking, and like some of our movies that premiered at our festival end up there. So they still kind of have like a horror life. So people kind of follow that around. And the heavy programming, I would say, starts like in January and ends like in June, and our festival starts in July.
Phew.
And yeah, it's pretty
No
tight.
time
And
off.
no, and like I don't know how it is for other festivals, but this year like we have already over a month ago, I think it was like actually towards the end of February, hit our submission record.
No.
So
Wow.
the amount of submissions we're getting this year is already like hundreds, if not already 1,000 more than we have in our record year. And
Oh my goodness.
we close in a month. So it's going to get, I don't even know. Like, we're very, like, we have like a huge team of pre screeners. Like, every single movie that gets submitted to Fantasia is literally seen by at least 3 people. So,
Wow.
like, we make sure it's like, like, because it's hard to make a movie. So we make sure that everyone's movie gets seen. It's like it's not an easy thing to like we reject a lot of really fantastic films because like we have no choice but to, or they're not the right fit, or we just have, it's just like the volume is insane.
Yeah.
My section is only 5 movies too, so like I like literally, it's like, that what's
Wow.
there's that term of like you have too much choice and then you get like
Yeah.
paralyzed with fear.
So
I'm
it's
like,
like when you get it's like when you go to the grocery store and you look
yeah.
at the cereal aisle and you're like, shit. I
What?
only need 2 different cereals, but there's like 100 different cereals now.
I
And
mean, I talk about the percentage of being accepted just by like your section must be incredibly small number. It just yeah, I couldn't imagine um having to screen all those films. Do you just eventually kind of run out of not run out of time, but you reach your accepted, is there like a certain number of films that you accept? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah,
And then
oh,
once
it's
you reach
five.
that number,
Five.
is it do you stop?
Well,
I meant like for the whole festival,
what
Steve.
Oh,
I
the
do,
whole
so it's like
festival's.
I rely I have to, especially like at this point, I really have to rely on the pre-screeners and my colleagues. Like again, we work very closely together, so oftentimes there are people who get when we receive the movie in submissions, there are like people who are watching them and they're giving notes and they're giving ratings and they're giving recommended sections. So they will say, I think that this fits in underground.
Mm.
And or sometimes they'll be like, I don't know. So there's like a lot of films that are labeled with like I don't know which section. And so I watch as many of the underground as possible. Sometimes like especially like my list right now is like over 800 movies that
Oh God.
a lot of them are shorts. Like I don't want to like,
Phew.
but
Okay, never mind. It's
still
not as bad. Okay.
no, but it's a lot. So
Still a lot. Yeah.
unfortunately, like I sometimes I'm like I'm not watching the whole film. I can't. They are already seen by somebody. And a lot of the time I'm just not watching it because I know it's not going to fit in my section.
Yeah.
I've had to overlook some really fantastic films. A lot of them just end up being programmed by somebody else. And if it's something that I think is really up like my colleague's alley, I'm going to be like, "Hey, definitely check this out if you haven't." Or if it's not categorized under your thing, like I think you would like it. But I don't have the time. I guess like it's just impossible. Like it's an
It is.
impossible mountain of submissions to kind of look at. So it's like it's very overwhelming. It's like it's a good problem to have. Like I'm not complaining and I feel very lucky and it's so cool to be able to discover so many films.
Yeah, I was
But
gonna say that's got to be the funnest part of it is just, and it's what we when we talked to Lisa, it was the same kind of thing I told her. I was like, it's got to be fun to just like you suddenly find like a gem. You're like, holy shit, like this could be like the next great auteurs, whatever you want to call them, like first film. Like this person's got an amazing vision here, and you like are able to screen their first movie. I mean, that'd be great. Like
yeah. We did
that's what
Skinamarink last year.
I saw your
Nice.
your 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 video about talking about kind of recommending that from the festival and stuff. And I'll be honest, me and Andrew have both seen the movie. Or I'll be
Yeah.
honest with you, I didn't finish the movie. It is a tough watch. And I
It's a
have a
unique
baby. I have a
watch.
baby in the room, and I'm like trying to like keep her at bay. And then that movie, I was like, I don't think I can do both of these at the same time. Um, but it's an interesting movie. What I watched of it, I was like, this is different. It really is different.
I mean, that was part of the challenge. Like a lot of people from our team had watched it, and they were not. No one was sure. Like even me, I'm like, it really fit my section very well, and
Yeah.
I really connected with it. I think I'm the same age as Kyle as well, and we're both Canadian, so we have like even the
Okay.
titles. Like we have a lot of the same reference points, but a lot of the section are like a lot of people are like I don't know if this is too experimental, and even the audience reactions is like very much the same thing. It's really in this weird zone that you're like, I don't know what to do with it, you know?
Yeah. Well, please tell us that when you're thinking about what fits your section, what are you looking for?
Yeah, do you have like a checklist of I
Like
don't
kind
know,
of, or you just know it?
characteristics?
It's a feeling. Is it a
Well, yeah, it's a little bit of it is a feeling. I do say it's like kind of like obscenity. I know it when I see it a little bit.
yeah yeah
But I do really as much as possible, and this is not always the case. I try to privilege actual underground films, as in movies that are made with very little money, very little means, or that could be like in a very literal sense, like a movie that just someone just made again like in their garage. Like I think the film was called Franken Zed. It's a guy who made like a puppet horror movie in his garage for like 6 years. Like you really don't get more do it yourself underground than that. A lot of the films in my section are made for like $10,000 or less, but there are some that are like have distributors or have like
yeah
quasi movie stars. Quote, movie stars is like a really strong term, but like known personalities or are like filmmakers who've made a lot of movies, but aesthetically they're kind of working in that underground thing, whether it's like the imagery is still gritty or the effects or it's something a bit transgressive. It's kind of talking about that other thing that I had mentioned earlier on, something I haven't seen before or something that I feel is like in conflict with kind of mainstream aesthetics. So there's all these kind of different things that are kind of working, and I'm also trying to like balance it within the section. Like I don't want like
Yeah.
5 movies that are exactly the same, or 5 movies that are all American, or 5 movies that are all horror movies, or all 5 movies that are this. So it's
Yeah.
like these constant levels of like compromise, and it's very challenging. Again, it's very rewarding, it's super fun, and it's so exciting to be able to share that experience with people. But it's like I'm just like constantly thinking about all the movies that I can't program, and that's also very depressing and scary.
Yeah, it's almost like you want to be able to like hold them back. Can I hold on to these for next year, or can I, like? But
Yeah.
then there's going to be like 800 more that come in for next year.
Right.
Well,
But
yeah, and it's the other thing I want to say is like I do receive a lot of movies that I really really love that I
yeah,
know is are not the right fit either for my section or even the festival, even if they are like a genre film or a horror film. That so sometimes I'm like I'm kind of on that fence, and like I hold on to those movies like maybe a little longer than I maybe should.
yeah,
And so sometimes I will contact like a filmmaker and say like, oh, like I really loved your movie, but it's like it's not a fit for either my section or the festival, and I just want to let you know that I really loved it, but like I don't think it would benefit. Like I don't want to put the wrong film in the festival
yeah,
and kind of have it lost, because that can happen too, and I don't think that's necessarily fair to a filmmaker either, to get
no,
buried because it's the wrong audience or the wrong place for it.
yeah. So though you say your section doesn't typically get movie stars, but of course you're at the festival, the whole time, and there's other people, there's the other films coming in the different parts of the festival. Are there any filmmakers or movie stars or anybody that you've met while working the festival that you're excited, a great memory you've had from your time at the festival?
Yeah, I've met a few. Um, I'm like not that I also, because I do it with the criticism too, so I end up meeting people, but it's like very rare that I'm like starstruck.
Yeah,
I think it's like it's very nice when you meet someone who is just very cool or very nice or really likes to talk. Like I interviewed like Ted Kotcheff, who directed Wake and Fright, Rambo, First Blood, and I found it a very nice experience. I think he was a very nice man, and he was older, and I think he was like really just like super excited to talk about his movies, and I think that's super
yeah,
cool. So it's like I think a lot like kind of talking about like genre audiences, like they're so excited a lot of the time to meet or see people who maybe have not got mainstream appreciation or have kind of been forgotten a bit by time, and it can be like a very heartening experience. So meeting him was fantastic. The other one was Sam Elliott. Sam Elliott was super cool. He was
yeah.
to me he's like a real movie star too. Like not that I don't meet that many, but like he's like a movie star.
Well, yeah, there's some people that have this this kind of presence. You can, and they're just, the camera gets on them, and you just they have this thing, and it's not even, they don't even have to say anything. They just ooze kind of like this. They have a look, I met the only movie star I ever really met in person was Laura Dern, and she was just, yeah, I saw her, and I instantly knew who she. I was like, I saw her, I knew, instantly knew who she was. Of course, I went straight to Jurassic Park. I was like, Laura Dern, like, and yeah, I get it. And yeah, Sam Elliott, that voice, you probably, as soon as you heard his voice, you were like, damn,
Yeah. Well,
like,
also he was it's kind of this. He was like he's very present. Like I feel like I'm talking like in like weird like California hippie, but he every single person he stopped and is like, "Hi, I'm Sam," and he shook their hand and he goes, "What's your name?" And then they would say their name and he'd go, "Nice to meet you, like Steven."
yeah,
And he would like maintain eye contact with you, and you were like, this is like very intense, but it was like it didn't feel fake at all. It felt very like genuine. He was there with his daughter, and you felt like he was just like a very grounded type of person. um
he cared about having a real connection, like, especially, I'm
yeah.
sure, and I know this happens with a lot of, you know movie stars, filmmakers, whatever, celebrities, that they find themselves not having a lot of real connections with people. People just want to come up, take their pictures, or whatever like that. And I know, I can't remember which actor it was, but they made a deal. I remember them seeing something about it, and they were like, I don't let people take my pictures. What I do is I either you can either let me sign something real quick, or you can sit here and talk to me for a second. Like, I'll let you talk to me, but we're not taking pictures. That's like,
Hmm.
I can respect that. Like, you don't want them to just come up and kind of be rude and snap a picture with you and run off. And like, it's like, if you want to you come up to me while I'm either eating dinner or, on my way somewhere, you can at least talk to me for a second. It's like, and I think that that's a good thing. You don't want to look at these people as just being objects that we watch. So
Or
yeah,
yeah, or props for social media, which you
Hmm.
which
often
is what you
see.
immediately do, is go to social media and post it, and like, you're like, oh,
Yeah,
look
and
who
then
I
like, oh,
saw.
look who I
You know,
just met. Look, I was
yeah,
just walking
yeah.
around and they're in the parking lot.
So I could see Sam Elliott being that kind
Or
of
like,
guy.
or you do
Like,
get some of those. It's kind of awkward where you take a picture of someone and they don't know, like a celebrity. If you're
Yeah.
at like a film festival and you see them, I don't know, walking down the street, and then you take a quick picture and then you post that online. It seems a little, I don't know, what's the word, like
stalkerish.
not good social etiquette. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
No, no.
Not
I
good social
agree.
etiquette. I mean, I know, like, when people go to conventions, they pay an exorbitant amount to take, celebrity photos and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff. That's something different. You've paid
yeah,
for
yeah.
that.
That's on
That's
purpose. You doing
Yeah,
it?
you
Yeah, it's
went
a
there to
thing.
specifically get an autograph, get a photo, things like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
It's
it's kind
never
of
my. It's
interesting.
honestly never my first thought to get an autograph. Like, it's not like, I literally, if I ever have the chance to meet, if I see somebody, I literally just want to shake their hands and tell them that I like their work,
Right. I mean,
and
in a
like,
way, I guess the photograph is to like preserve the memory,
well, it's to
preserve the
make sure
moment.
people believe you,
It makes
right?
sure people believe you. Like, not everyone's gonna believe this. Like I kind of believe Steven that he met Laura Dern.
He
I
kind
mean,
of believes it.
I don't have any witnesses. I don't have any
Yeah.
anybody who was there at the time to confirm it. But I kind of do
She
believe him a
had a
little
film
bit.
they're showing. I can kind of
I
believe it.
I can
You know?
kind of believe it.
Yeah.
Steven's
Yeah.
a very honest person in general.
Usually.
Um,
But back to her, but
yeah, back
Justine's
to
experiences.
Justine.
So
I
Sam
mean,
Elliott was one. What's tell me some others, please.
It's actually hard for me to choose anyone else. It's very nice. Like, I got to see Abel Ferrara present Welcome to New York, which was an unbelievable experience. He is larger than life,
Yeah.
and he has a lot to say. He's surprising. He's like very, like, erratic is the wrong word. He's very, like, he has a lot of energy.
Yeah.
hmm,
But he's very thoughtful, and you can tell he loves what he does, and he has a huge passion for making films, and he has so much respect for his collaborators, and his collaborators have a huge amount of respect for him. I know he has a very troubled past, and he's also can still be a bit difficult sometimes, I've heard.
I've heard that too. I mean,
But
his films are unique, to say the
yes.
least.
So that was really fantastic. I was really sad I missed out on meeting Zulawski. I had two
Mm.
chances to meet him and I missed it twice. And unfortunately he passed away, but he's one of my
Yeah.
favorite filmmakers. So that's the someone who I would have been starstruck by.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
It's
think there's certain people
good.
I'd be starstruck by. I mean, if I ever met Martin Scorsese, David Lynch,
Yeah.
Yeah.
people like that, I think I wouldn't know how to approach them. You know what I
Oh,
mean? If
I do. I just walk up to him
well,
like, "Hey,
Steven's got a
man,
lot more
what's up?"
courage than I
Oh,
do.
I don't have no problem with it. I've done it my whole life. Like, when I've gone to see bands play, like, and I always typically go for like the small venues to see a band play. So I have that opportunity, whether they're like popping off the tour bus or whatever. I don't care. I'm just like, we're paying money to see them. I mean, they know we're fans. Hey, what's up, man? They
Right.
just want to talk to normal people, and they want you to treat them normal,
I
and
will
just
say this,
come and say hey.
yeah,
Like,
very eye-opening about doing this podcast here and meeting a lot of people that I never thought I'd get to meet. Um, they're normal, which is surprising. You know what I
of course
mean?
they are.
They're normal people where
Some of them are not,
you
but
put them
some
up
of
on a
it.
pedestal. Well, Justine is clearly unique. I
Yes,
mean,
clearly.
very much so. I
She's
but
clearly not like everybody. She's a little. We're having a hard time talking to her. No, I'm just kidding.
right, right.
Um,
But I'm just saying, like, meeting. I mean, we bring this about meeting Eddie Muller from TCM. That was always a big thing
yeah,
for me, being such a big fan of film noir, and then of course watching TCM and how formative that's been for my love of classic cinema. So that was kind of big for me. And then meeting like um, other people like Sean Baker. You know, I've seen all of his films. I never thought I'd ever get to meet Sean Baker, and that was a unique experience getting to talk about his work and then about his newer film Red Rocket and stuff like that. Um, you learn that most of the people that we talk to and most of the people within the industry of movies and entertainment are kind of normal people just
Mhm.
working your job for the most part. Like a lot of the actors and actresses that we hear about or we see in movies, they're just like working, like moving from one gig to another, from one to another, just to make a living and
Just
buy
some are just a lot
groceries and stuff.
some are just a lot richer
Some
than
are,
they're
yeah,
just a
some are on
lot they're
another
living in
level.
another reality, I think,
Some are in
but
another level, like the Tom Cruises of the
Yeah.
world, George Clooney, Julia
not that they're
Roberts,
bad
J
people,
Lo.
but they're living in other worlds.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
different bracket of
yeah,
society, I guess, or
yeah,
culture. Um, but yeah, I've just learned a lot about that. That there's a lot more things that we have in common than separate us when it comes to the people that we put on a pedestal, really. So
yeah,
so it doesn't surprise me a lot of times when you see someone in the news for something, I don't know, it's not scandalous, but like they say something and it pisses people off, and it's like that's something a normal person would probably say about
Yeah.
some
yeah,
touchy situation or whatever. You know, it's a no, like a that's a normal reaction or a random human reaction.
yeah,
Um, yeah, so that's the one thing I've learned about all this.
yeah. So I know I know this will kind of get weird self-referential here, but we're on a podcast right now, and
True.
I did notice that you said that you were interested in podcasting, getting into some podcasting yourself. Is that still something you're pursuing? Are you?
I it's kind of on the back pedestal because I have too much stuff to do. And it's like
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not I was working briefly with a friend of mine, and like I had it's like it wasn't working, and it's like it's 100% my fault because I'm like mess sometimes
yeah,
because like my schedule is just like unpredictable, and then it's like like you it's like there's always excuses, so it's like technical things. I think if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen when it needs to happen, and
yeah,
until then it's like not worth it. Like I always go through like whenever I'm like gonna write a big article, like one of the things I like to do is I actually like to like go on Spotify and I look up like the filmmaker's name or a subject that's related to it, and I find as many podcasts as I can on the subject, and I create a playlist so that when I'm going on my walks or I'm going on runs or I'm like cooking, I could like listen to that, and it's kind of like research. And you
yeah,
realize how many film podcasts start and have like 3 episodes. And some of them are not bad. It's just like it's hard
yeah.
to commit. Like you really just
It
have to
is.
do it.
Oh yeah. I mean, I always say the one thing about me is finding the energy and motivation. The good thing is, if I had to recommend it for people starting out, is to get someone to do it with you,
Hmm.
because usually they'll keep you motivated or they'll stay on top of you, or it's nice to have someone to share the responsibility with, share the things with. To be honest, without Steven, I probably would not be doing this because there'd
Oh,
be
he's
no
so
way I would
sweet.
keep up with it week to week, every having that goal in mind to get to the podcast recording times or get to the podcast recording days, because I would put it off, whether it be through procrastination or laziness or lack of energy or lack of motivation. It's tough. So it's like Justine just said, you do see a lot of things start and stop, whether it be podcasting, whether it be
Yeah,
YouTube things, whether it be people who started writing and then started doing a blog, and then they'll do a couple of posts and they'll just one day stop. And it's
yeah,
hard to pick up that momentum again. It
Hmm.
really is. Once you stop, it's hard to start again. Kind of like exercising, really.
Yeah.
Once your body's not used to it anymore, it's hard to get it back up to that level.
no, it's like a lot. I mean, even your writing. When you're not writing, writing's a muscle you have to get good at, and you have to practice and practice and keep doing it, and it's a tedious thing that you have to keep doing, or you'll find yourself unmotivated. And
Yeah, yeah,
fortunately, I've kept us. I was just looking at it. We're up to this would be our we've released 267
Wow.
podcasts. We've done it, Andrew. We're up
yeah.
there.
When you combine our previous podcast, Cinema
That's what
Discovery
I'm saying.
Project,
267
and
combined. Yeah.
then with this one, which
Yeah,
is
so
kind of this is kind of like a sequel podcast, really, or
it's really become the
offshoot.
main. It's really
Yeah,
become the main thing. We did. It
yeah.
used to do an old one where we kind of had no. It was like it went from talking about broad subject matters about film to talking about one movie an episode, which kind of got me uninterested after a while. I
Mm.
was like, just the making myself watch a movie and then
Mhm.
researching it,
And
and
then dissect it.
it's not a bad thing, but it's one of them things I wouldn't want to do like every other week, like we were doing.
Yeah,
Like
and
I was like,
a lot of people do movie related podcasts and stuff like that, whether it be about, like you just said, movies, like one movie and then kind of dissect it, or two movies
and that's
dissected,
fine every once in a while. I
which
would
is
still like
cool.
to do that every once in a while, but it's like we did it routinely for months, and I was like,
Yeah,
eh.
and we did a
But
whole episode coincidentally about the history of horror, where we went through silent film all the way up
yeah,
through, like, I don't
kind
know
of
if we
more
got quite to modern
modern.
day,
We
but we
probably
went
we're probably
for a
more
while.
educated now than we were then. We probably do a
Ironically
better
so.
version of that
Ironic,
now.
because you know what's crazy is this podcast has probably educated us more because we got to watch more movies,
Yeah.
about that subject matter and other
Yeah,
subject matters. You know, I mean, there's so much more we've gotten into, specifically 80s slashers. They must have made hundreds of thousands of these because there's so many of them,
yeah,
and they're all kind of seeing the light of day now on Blu-ray, which is very interesting, through Vinegar
yeah.
Syndrome, through Severin. Um,
Is
uh,
there Justine? What if there was a subject matter you were going to do for a podcast? What was going to be the focus that you guys talked around?
Sex and cinema. Like,
Okay,
one
yeah,
nice.
kind of even actually talking about what you mentioned, like, the fact that my job is to actually do film reviews and I do them every week, I only can do them because it's like an instant reaction. Like, I write
yeah,
2 to 3 film reviews a week for new releases. Um, and if I wasn't paid, I would have a really hard time doing this. And, like, I
yeah,
reserve the writing that I actually enjoy to write about, like, things that I pitch long form, because I don't like to be told what to watch. And, like, if I were only to do like a podcast on horror or something that is like a bit too specific, I would get bored so quickly.
yeah,
I really need to be able, like, Sex and Cinema is so broad, like, you can kind of almost shoehorn anything into that. You could do a whole series on Marvel and the fact that there's
yeah.
no sex in it and you could kind of get away with it.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, and ironically, the one movie that did have a sex scene in it is probably their lowest, like, critically appraised film, in Eternals. Um, but that's an interesting kind of genre. Yeah, not genre, but just um, sex in movies and the history behind it, and the different forms it's taken,
get
especially.
into censorship. You can get
Yeah.
into
Yeah,
all different types of
and just
things
kind
with
of
that.
like how
Yeah,
European cinema kind of is way more different than American cinema or North American cinema when it comes to how they treat it and how they view it and just the culture and society of it all.
yeah.
It's so fascinating.
We're
I
trying to get
mean,
you motivated to do this
yeah, I guess we're
podcast.
trying to get you motivated. I mean, if you ever do it, we would love to be
I would
guests, or
love
Yeah.
at
to
least I
listen.
would.
Yeah,
I mean,
Um,
I'm sure my friend who really pushed me to do it is he, like, really hopes I do it too. But it's he's like, I worked with him. I actually started in podcasting, so I used to do a radio show
okay,
with him. I think it goes that was also in 2008 to 2009. It was on a college radio, and then it became a podcast. We did that for a long time. And he's done his name is Simon Howell, and he's incredibly talented as an audio engineer. So he worked with Kate Renenbaum, and they did The Lodgers, which was a Twin Peaks podcast. Then after that, they did one on Chantal Ackerman. I believe they're on a hiatus for that one briefly, but they were going through every Chantal Ackerman film. So it would be with him, and I need to talk to him because I think I haven't spoken to him, and I think he's kind of mad at me. So I'm sorry, Simon, if you're listening to
oh,
this.
oh man. Um, so kind of getting towards concluding this, we do got to, of course, bring up physical media again. And so we, like I said, you've done a little bit of work. You're getting a little bit more out there. I know you got some new stuff. You got some work coming out of the Picnic at Hanging Rock release from Second Sight coming out soon. But how does your collection look? Do you have a collection? Is that a thing that you do, or is it just very minimal, just every
um
once in a while?
I'm like, you can see a little. I'm not going to show it. My room's a mess, but like here-ish, this is
Uh huh.
that little section there is like
Uh huh.
only my DVDs and my Blu-rays. I actually have a very small collection. I am not much of a collector.
Yeah.
I think because it kind of goes back to I don't rewatch movies that often, and I think that's a large part of it. The only ones a lot of the ones I have are movies that I do. Like I have Texas Chainsaw. I don't have the new release. I have like one of the older Blu-rays, and I have some
Okay.
Criterions. I get a lot, people send me stuff. I have that, and then I have things I've done. And then one day, one magical day, I went to the laundry room of my apartment building, and someone had left literally like 3 giant boxes of DVDs and Blu-rays, and I just took all of them.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Maybe
there
they
was
just left them there.
yeah, I think they were moving, and they were like, it's like kind of like I have a lot more books than I have Blu-rays. Like it's almost they're like this is like it looks like a closet, but it's like a weird boiler room, and it's like there it's like all there's like I don't know like thousands of books and like a few hundred DVDs,
No, well, I
and
mean, you obviously collect. You are a collector, though. I
I am
mean,
a
I think
collector, yes,
so.
but I used
Books
to have
and yeah,
I used to have a lot more DVDs when I was living with my parents,
yeah,
back in the day, and then I did get rid of a lot of them because it was
yeah.
it's they're hard once you move. It's actually like that's when you're like, oh shoot, like
I bought the house I'm in now to make sure there was room for the collection. That's the main reason we moved to this house. It's like has
It's
to
the
have
only
an extra
reason.
room. It has to have an extra room that can fit my movies. Um, but no, I mean every collector comes in different sizes when it comes to their everybody's got different living situations, money
Right.
situations. You can't not everybody can be fully
Space.
committed,
Yeah.
and I think like you said, you don't always, you're practical about it. I don't rewatch things a lot, so why do I need to have them here? I
yeah.
get it, and then we don't flack anybody, but
Yeah, I
you got
wouldn't
at least
say, yeah.
100 movies. You said you got 100, like about 100 movies. That's pretty
Yeah,
good.
don't
I mean, it's not
I
bad.
wouldn't
Yeah.
judge anybody
And
for the
there's some
size
that
of their collection. Come
I
on.
really
Size
want.
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's true.
Well, it's like it's like I still have like dream DVDs. The one I want the most, like there's like the collection. It's like if I could have like if I had infinite money, what I
Okay.
would buy is the Criterion Olympic collection.
Oh, the
Oh,
Olympic
With
set.
all the
yeah.
Yeah.
Olympic films. That's like to me like I don't know like the holy grail.
Okay.
And I know it's like
Well, you know what?
accessible.
Let's start a Kickstarter. We're gonna make sure she gets this thing
Yeah,
for
exactly.
Christmas this year. Everybody,
I
let's get that
wasn't that
going.
that was like 100 no, wasn't that how many films were in that set, Steven? Was that like
It's a
100
lot.
I
films?
think it's like
It's
one
yeah,
almost one for per year. So I
yeah.
think it was
Yeah, and
like $700 at American, which to Canadians is a
Oh,
lot.
it's cheaper than that. It's got to be cheaper than that. Andrew's gonna
see.
look it up.
Yeah, of course I'm gonna look it up.
It's
It's
like 300 and something dollars, isn't it?
let's see, 100 it's about 230
Okay.
American,
Okay, that's
Yeah.
like
which I don't know what is.
350 Canadian, 400
Right.
Canadian.
I mean, but it is yeah, it's 53 films ranging from 1924 to 2016, which is it came out in 2017. That's a unique set of films just because you don't really associate the Olympics with movies, but obviously someone was recording the events of the times,
Yeah.
and it's kind of an interesting historical
Some of them
perspective.
are by like really established filmmakers, like Japan. I think in the 70s, Kon Ichiwa.
Oh,
Um, there's one also. The one I really want to see is obviously the Montreal Olympics, the
Yeah.
disastrous 1976. And I just like I'm not even like a sports fan necessarily, but I love sports. Like it's a weird thing. I don't follow sports, but I like to watch them.
You like the idea of like physically being enduring and playing game and doing things like in the moment to like
Yeah.
I get what you're saying, yeah,
yeah,
like
kind of like the cultural impact of sports is so
yeah,
fascinating.
yeah,
It's just like it's something that's been a mainstay in our culture for so long, even before television was around,
Hmm.
even before radio was around. There were sporting events that people would go to, just as a cultural community type of thing,
yeah.
and it's
and,
kind of
and
transitioned to different forms over time.
and the thing with the
Uh,
Olympics is it kind of goes back to this like old schoolness, where you got like they're not just like the games that we see all year around, but it's like throwing things and jumping and running. And it's like more simplistic in a way. Like it's more just about like
yeah,
straight up like physical, like swimming, like,
yeah,
like it's,
it's interesting because we have professional sports, whether it be baseball, basketball, American football, soccer, or whatever, and even those athletes are a different type of athlete than Olympic
yeah,
athletes,
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
and it's like why is that the case? And you're like, It's because the training is different, because the mentality is different, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, it's incredibly
They're
interesting
training for this like one event
to be the
thing that's
best in the world.
yeah, but
You know what I
you
mean?
know, and it's not for like, you know, the sports that these other people play in are for like they play like so many games in a certain amount of time. It's more about endurance over many months, many games, instead of this like one kind of like
Yeah,
event
I
that
feel
where
like
they, you
Olympic
know,
training must be intense.
it's got to be
Like, it's
intense. Yeah.
like every day, 20,
And
365.
welcome to the sports podcast.
Welcome to the sports
Yeah.
podcast. I did want to ask, kind of transition into, because we've been very fortunate on this podcast, Stephen, to kind of learn more about Canadian cinema just inadvertently through a couple of the labels we've from people who've worked at a couple of labels, Canadian International Pictures. What's the other one, Stephen? Black
Black Zero
Zero.
is the new
Black
one, new
Zero is
label.
another one. I guess I wanted to ask Justine, how she views Canadian cinema, and if she and things like that. Since it's something that I'm assuming you grew up knowing, and you're within that industry adjacently. Um, I'm fascinated with the Canadian cinema now, just because it feels so hidden, even though it's probably been around for decades. The Canadian film industry, I mean.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on the Canadian film industry. It's also very complex because I live in Quebec, where we
Hmm.
have our own independent film industry, which is separate from the rest of Canada. That's actually very successful and has audiences and is its own like individual market, and is primarily French, of course.
Okay,
Hmm.
yeah.
And Canadian film is like has just like an insane history, and it actually starts in Quebec. Kind of. There's like different periods, but like the modern section actually started with softcore porn. So in 1969, they released this movie called Valérie, which was a softcore porn, and it was like was a box office smash, and it like benefited from like this new government body that like started to fund films. And so then people, it kind of coincided with nationalism and this kind of liberation from Catholicism and all of these other factors. And so like you have this early period of Quebec cinema, which was Canadian cinema really, that was just like drawing all these people to see like pornography in the movie theaters. And like even one of them, like one of the most famous ones, and I believe it was like the high sold the most amount of tickets of any film in Canadian film history, uh up until Porky's. And if you just look at Quebec, it outsold Porky's, and it was only in like in the 2000s that it got beat. It's a movie called Deux Femmes en Or, Two Women in Gold. And wait, is it that one? Wait, that one was 100% the one that was like the most tickets sold for like decades. But
Yeah.
like the Justin Trudeau's dad appears in one of these movies, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, in like a CFL game, like kind of bringing back the sports a little bit. So there's like a
Hmm.
scene in the sports
Yeah.
arena, and like they have all these celebrities in the audience, and like one of them is Pierre Elliott Trudeau, who knew he was going to be in this softcore porn, and like it kind of speaks to this like weird period. Then they had like no taxes for a while, so it's like that's when you start to see like all these really like Silent Partner, all these really like strange low budget but kind of like high profile stars making all these movies in Canada in the 1970s. And then like David Cronenberg and blah
Yeah.
blah blah blah. It's like it's very complex because it's like a lot of Canadian film audiences outside of Quebec don't watch Canadian films, and if they do, it's often by mistake. Like they don't know it's Canadian, and it's like this ever long challenge of actually getting Canadians to watch Canadian films, which is weird because a lot of Canadian television shows are so popular, like Schitt's Creek, Letterkenny.
Yeah.
They have like this international appeal, but the movie they haven't cracked it. But here in Quebec, like in the box office, like we go see movies from Quebec all the time. We're like if you look at like you can there's a way of seeing like the box office though for all of North America and the individual movie theaters that make the most money. And Montreal is often in the top 3. We have one of the theaters that makes the most money per screen.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's because I don't know culturally why that is, but we still go see a lot of movies. But it depends on the film, so sometimes it kind of varies from the rest of the box office. Like we have Dune, we had the number 1 theater in North America for
Wow.
obvious
Oh.
reasons because Denis
Yeah.
Villeneuve.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Of course.
yeah.
Yeah.
Denny.
Yeah,
Um, it it's fascinating because Hollywood dominates the movie world, and it dominates it in such a way that you don't like what you're saying is that, I would never know that stat had you not say it, because I'm always concentrated on domestic box office numbers, which only pertain to the United States.
No,
You know
they
what
a
I mean?
lot of
Like,
time they actually count Canada. Canada's
do they
included
count
in the
Canada?
yeah,
Probably just to
America.
bump up the numbers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
United States. I'm not sure if this is still the case, but I'm almost 100% sure. I do think that domestic box office includes Canada. So we're like
Okay.
the
Yeah.
51st
It'd
states.
be nice if they
Yeah.
would have see, they don't even specify that.
Of
They
course
don't
not.
even
Of
specify that.
course not.
Like, they don't really say that. It's fascinating because, we like I was saying, there's a lot of um Canadian films from the 60s, from the 70s, and then onward and onward, that are just, I don't think, films that people know existed until maybe even now, or probably still don't, because Canadian film history is probably so different than what we learned here from American cinema. You know what I mean? Like you were just saying, this idea of kind of government funded, um, government funds to create films. That's how David Cronenberg got his start. People know David Cronenberg obviously for his other more commercial work, but a lot of his early
Yeah.
stuff is funded by
It's
the
still
Canadian
funded
government.
by the Canadian government. He
And
still
it's the
gets a
and
little
it's weird
Yeah.
stuff
yeah.
too, like stuff that I'm pretty sure he just got the funding for and is like, "Yeah, I'm gonna pitch it one way and make my own stuff."
Believe it or not, I don't think so. I think it's just Canada's weird. I like it's like there's this like
Is that
weird
really true?
thing can like because this is the thing. It's like if a movie's Canadian, there's like an incredibly high chance. Like I would say like 95% chance it is receiving government money. And that includes Cronenberg. A lot of his movies now are co-productions. So like he's
Yeah.
also getting money from like other countries. Like the reason why Crimes of the Future is set in Athens is because he got a bunch of money and tax breaks from the Greek government. But it's still, if you look at the end credits, like Telefilm gave him money. Like he's
Yeah.
receiving money from the federal government of
Okay.
Canada. And I think United States is one of the only countries in the world which is not funded by the government, the majority of film. I think France, no, France funds a lot. Like a lot of governments are giving money to cinema. It's not always in the same way, it's not always on the same level, but America is the exception. And there's advantages to that because you have no oversight. But there's
Right.
disadvantages to it as well, where it's very difficult to make movies that are not commercially like, really viable.
Mm,
So
Yeah.
even if you look like at the history of like Russian cinema, like there's always this question like under like some of the most like oppressive regimes under the USSR, the Soviet Union, how are movies like Tarkovsky films getting made, right? That are pro-religion, that are anti-establishment, often like in some way directly or indirectly against the regime. It's because a lot of countries see soft power as more powerful. So someone
Yeah.
like Tarkovsky was or Parajanov, who lost his funding because he became less successful, as long as his movies were winning awards at international film festivals, they would let him basically do whatever he wanted because it
mm.
proved that the Russian artist was the greatest artist in the world.
It's about prestige. You know what I mean? It's about
Yeah.
prestige, and like, yeah, if our guy is better than yours, we're gonna continue to prop him up. I
Yeah.
mean, that
Yeah.
that and that goes into like international cultural politics of the time and all that kind of stuff. Um, it's very interesting, but here in the U.S., I mean, I don't know a lot of it. It seems to be state by state
Yeah.
will have their own financial structure or tax structure in place when it comes to film production. That's why you see a lot of the Marvel movies all made in Georgia or Atlanta
Hmm.
in that area because of the way in which the state funding works when it comes to taxes. That's why you see a lot of shows or TV or movies will be say that the setting is New York, but they're really shot in some other place.
Yeah.
Oftentimes Canada, Toronto doubles for New York
Yeah.
so many times. All of
Montreal
the
too.
show Yeah, all of the shows that have come out on the CW network for the last decade were all shot in Vancouver.
Yep.
All of
Yeah.
them. Smallville was shot in
Oh
Vancouver
yeah. Yeah.
forever. I mean, I'm listening to the Talkville podcast now, and they just talk about them shooting
Every
in
episode. Yeah.
Vancouver all
Yeah.
the time, every
Yeah.
episode, certain locations. That
Well,
was the same way.
Transformers in Michigan. Michigan actually used to have such a great deal, and Michigan's was genius because, like, as we know, like Michigan was really hit by like this like economic crisis when you could no longer have manufacturing of cars, and
Right.
so they had this very briefly until they hired. I think it was like in 2000. they not hired, but reelected a Republican who squashed it. So it was 100% tax break. And that was, I think, to attract Michael Bay to do all the Transformers movies there. And a lot of other filmmakers did benefit from it. But part of that deal that you had to do was you had to invest in infrastructure. So it's like if you wanted, for example, to have like a road, you had to fix the road in Detroit.
Hmm.
And so it's
Yeah.
like it's kind of like I think it was actually a very intelligent way to attract talent. You had to you often have to hire like a percentage of local workers. You have to work with a
Yeah.
percentage of things. It can be very stimulating, and so I think that the tax break system can be very beneficial to a local economy if it's done correctly. I personally really liked the Michigan one from like an outsider point of view. I don't know from I don't know how contentious it was. Like
Right.
100% is very, very, very high. Like most places don't
Yeah.
even offer any percentage, and you can attract people. But
Yeah.
I find it
I,
very interesting.
yeah, there are some countries that are. That's why some movies are shot in some countries, like you were saying, Justine. George Miller was supposed to make a Justice League movie in what, like 2007, 2008 in Australia, and it was because they were going to have like certain government tax thing and funding and whatnot and then I can think that funding changed when the government changed or something. I'm just
Yeah.
paraphrasing, and that's why that movie never happened, because at the last second, just funding changed.
I mean, that is the
Um,
risk of the government funding. In Canada, we've dealt with that too, where we've had conservative governments who decide either they decide there's too much money given to it, or under we had a very conservative prime minister for a long time, and it becomes like a nice culture war where you're like the government funded this movie that is offensive, and therefore we should
Hmm.
remove all funding. It's like a very classic trope of like cutting costs. So and there's like a lot of cases in the Canadian cinema where you can point like every year to something really, really weird that the government does give money to, or it's something that's potentially offensive to somebody. So
Yeah.
it's not hard to do. Like again, Cronenberg is like a perfect example. It's like you can just point to any one of his films and you can make someone who is a conservative voter in Canada really, really upset.
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Yeah. This is a subject matter that we just
we
could have just started a whole second
yeah we
podcast
don't
on
get
this
we I
subject
mean
matter.
we don't get into all of that because movie
Yeah.
productions, man. You
Yeah.
want to talk about podcasts? I'm pretty sure they teach whole courses about production, the finances of movie production.
Yeah.
I've got to be mind-numbingly insane. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
like I said, it varies by place, varies by industry. I mean, it's wild, but it's all kind of part of the soup, I guess, that or stew that makes up movies. And then we eventually get Blu-ray releases. We eventually get theatrical exhibition. We get all kinds of things that go into it. It's all part of it all. It's the part of the great tapestry. Stephen, I don't know if you have anything else to say to Justine.
Other than that, this was a great pleasure. We appreciate you taking the time, um, and I hope that we didn't keep you up too late. Um,
Yeah, I
but
know this is late for Stephen. That's why I wanted
well,
to
it's late for everybody.
see if you had
But
anything.
well,
Uh,
sorry, not you.
Oh yeah,
Not
not
late
me.
for
Come
you.
on now. I haven't even
But
started my movie watching for the night yet. I
I
got to
know
figure out
it's
what I'm going to
it's
watch.
gotta get it going. Gotta see what announcements were out there. But Justine, we appreciate you taking the time, and we can't wait to see. I can't wait to see more of your work in physical media. Is there anything else? I mean, you don't have to give us specific titles, but like, do you have other things that you're working on, whether it's audio commentaries or essays that you're going to be contributing at some point in the future?
I hope so. I mean, there's some that I can think of, but they're too early. They're not set
Yeah,
in
yeah,
stone. But I'm hoping to. I really enjoy it. I haven't seen the Picnic at Hanging Rock, so I'm really excited to watch that one.
great,
Oh, I can't wait.
awesome. Well, Justine, if there's places where people can connect with you or other
Or
things
see
that
your
you want
work.
to, yeah, see your work or other play, or like I know you have a Patreon. Is that something that you still run? I know I was gonna
Yeah.
say, are you still using it?
No, not at the moment. I wouldn't recommend sending out to my Patreon at the moment. I would just check out my Twitter and my Instagram at Red Room Rantings, and I'll share most of the things that I'm proud of there. And I do
All right,
post a lot, so you could always engage with me. I don't mind. So you can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, you do have a
awesome.
letterboxed as well, but I don't know if that's more for personal use.
Oh no, I'm happy to share that, but I can never remember. It's a different username than Red Room Rantings. I think or is it? You could look up Justine Smith on that one.
Yes, that's kind of how I found it.
Yeah.
It's Yeah, I was actually gonna talk to you, but we're exiting now. Just saying
Yeah,
that
we're
you and
exiting.
I
Let's
both
not
have
let's not
this
mess
one of
up
the
the
same
landing.
favorites. Yeah,
But
you
yeah,
and I both have
please.
yeah, you and I both have one of the same favorites in the red shoes. That's
Oh
a
yeah, I'm
family
obsessed.
connection.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And welcome back. If I didn't mention before, I am sick. So if my voice sounds more like Clint Eastwood in this episode,
Little
please,
rough, little rough.
please, compliment me because I'm more manly sounding than usual.
You're like Sam Elliott with those car commercials he kept doing, like Chevy. Well, I don't know if it was Chevy or Ford or some one of the big pickup
Ford
trucks.
trucks. I don't know.
I don't
Yeah, I
know.
know what you're talking about though. But yeah, so yeah, excuse me in advance. And Andrew, I excuse him. He actually
Thank you.
coughs and sneezes pretty
All the time.
regularly. Yeah, but
I am
I might
perpetually
cough.
sick,
Yeah,
chronically ill at all times.
yeah,
It's an interesting thing. I mean, this is a whole big thing, but growing up being constantly sick all the
yeah,
time, when you run into people who are never sick, you're taken aback by that.
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like, really, you're just
It's-
fine all the time?
You're
What's
just
that like?
wait, huh?
What's that? What's
Huh?
that? You're not coughing and sneezing all the time? Like you don't get seasonally sick every single season for no reason?
Yeah,
Man, you're living
and
life.
as you get older, you just start to get sick uh, a lot easier. And I got a kid now, and I think the kids, she doesn't leave the house without us, but it's like they're like incubators for like sickness. So they grab things and then you know they just cultivate it
Oh
in their
yeah, I was
bodies and
never more
spread
sick
it.
than when I was going to school every day, elementary school, middle
Yeah,
school, high school. Um yeah, I would be sick all the time because like those places are just notoriously germ filled places with you
yes,
don't know which kids are sick, which kids aren't sick, and all this kind of
exactly.
stuff. Um, we're learning a lot more about that now, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're not
Sorry, we didn't mean to start this out as
yeah, we're not
but
the CDC. This isn't
yeah,
a
yeah,
review of Contagion.
no,
Uh,
no,
but we do have a interesting slate of releases or announcements for this week. Nowhere near as impactful or as heavy a load as the last 2 weeks have been. I don't know what was going on. The last week of April, first week of May was just filled with stuff. This is way more relaxed. The dust has settled, and we've got
yeah,
some things here and there, but nothing like before. But let's get into it. Let's get into it. That's why we're all here.
do it.
Let's get into some kind of one-offs before we
Okay,
get into any type of sequential sets of stuff. I do want to talk about Studio Canal. They're releasing another 4K. This seems to be their thing now. Let's start releasing 4Ks in the UK
they're good at it.
for
They're
Studio
good at
Canal
it.
or France, really, but both places. And this is another film that many people are probably familiar with, and this is Jean-Luc Godard's Contempt, or Le Mépris, as they say in France, from 1963, starring Brigitte Bardot, Michel Piccoli, Jack Palance, Fritz Lang, the name
Yep,
you may be
I
familiar
heard of
with,
that guy.
and Georgia Moll. And this is a film that I actually have seen. For some reason, I thought I owned it, but I guess I don't because I was looking at my shelves and it's just not there. So what the deal is with when it comes to Studio Canal and when it comes to their releases here in the US, they've had a deal with Lionsgate now for as long as I can remember, where some Studio Canal releases in the UK make their way over here through Lionsgate. I remember they did it with not only their Blu-ray release of Contempt, but they did it with The Grand Illusion. They did it with The Third Man. I remember that very vividly. They did it with Ran, Akira Kurosawa's Ran. That
Yeah,
Blu-ray that I have here actually is is through Studio Canal via Lionsgate, and then even the 4K that Lionsgate put out, not Lionsgate, the 4K that Studio Canal put out of Ran got a release, yeah, through Lionsgate, but I think it was like a Best Buy exclusive
the steelbook.
steelbook
Yeah,
from Lionsgate, and you can only find it there. Awesome cover art, but it's not that easy to get if it's exclusive to one store. But Contempt is a really great film. It's part of that early crop of great Jean-Luc Godard films, in my opinion, where you have A Band Apart, you have Vive Sa Vie, and you have, of course, Breathless, and then, of course, you have several other films, really, like Weekend, and just that whole crop of his '60s work, I think, is really solid. A Woman is a Woman, but yeah, this is a film that interesting kind of a bit of a meta film. So Limit tells the tragic romance between Paul and his wife Camille. Paul, I believe, is portrayed by Michelle Piccoli, and Camille is portrayed by Bridget Bardot. Paul is enlisted with the task of rewriting a film script. Whilst he becomes engrossed in writing, he appears oblivious to the film producer's interest in his irresistible wife, Camille. In turn, we witness the hurtful unfolding of Paul and Camille's marriage. So you've kind of probably heard this story before. The dissolution of a marriage, really.
Yeah.
The coming apart of a marriage is done in this film, and it's a really, really great film. Absolutely
Yeah.
fantastic.
I need to check. I mean, like Godard's always one I'm afraid to get like to dive into because his stuff tends to be hard to grasp sometimes. Of course
Understandable.
I've seen I've seen Breathless. I believe I've seen Weekend. It's been a while. That's the one with the car crash, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I think I've seen Weekend. And then the funny thing about Contempt, like you were saying, it did have the Lionsgate Blu-rays. I remember, this is funny that this film was where it was, but I remember seeing the Contempt Blu-ray all the time in Walmart, always sitting
Yeah, I
there.
saw it in
Yeah,
stores too.
yeah.
I
I'm
saw it,
like,
I saw it at Barnes and Noble. Barnes and Noble had it
that
forever.
doesn't surprise me as much, but like Walmart has
That
this
does actually surprise me. The
Godard
Walmart
film
one.
on a median out near the front of the store, like where people see it, walk by it all the time.
What kind of
People,
cool Walmart were you going to?
I know, right? It's the artsy Walmart.
I
Um,
guess.
yeah,
I mean, it's
but
kind of like when I see Criterions at Best Buy. I'm
yeah.
like, who
Well,
put
that's
this here?
becoming
Like,
a regular thing now. I don't
what
know
film
why.
student put this here? I mean, it's the more current, like, 4K releases,
Yeah.
but it's still Criterion,
Well, yeah. I
it's
mean, I'm seeing stuff like the Malcolm X and some of the most
oh,
recent
yeah,
4K stuff in stores. Yeah, Best Buy.
so am I.
That's a good thing.
I mean, they're charging, like, full price for
Am I
them, so I
buying
wouldn't
it there?
recommend people
No,
buying it.
no. I'm waiting
Yeah,
for the Criterion sale. Hopefully, that's coming.
yes, so would I. I mean, we do have some Criterion news later on, but it's not the usual Criterion news.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is Contempt. There's no listing of special features yet. This is from their Vintage World Cinema line. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is coming from a new 4K restoration that's probably been playing in theaters, most likely in Europe. So that is Le Mépris or Contempt. Another one here is a double feature actually from the Cohen Media Group, or from their Cohen Film Collection, and this has kind of become a partner label of Kino now. This is where Cohen is because you can find a lot of their stuff during the various Kino sales that end up happening. They always have some Cohen stuff in there, and this is a double feature of films both starring Douglas Fairbanks. The first one is Robin Hood from 1922, and the second is The Black Pirate from 1926. And I'm pretty sure, yeah, they're. I think the first one, Robin Hood, has a new 4K restoration, and there's a new restoration of The Black Pirate. They don't specify whether it's 2K or 4K. I can tell you this, though. I did get to see Robin Hood, and the movie is like 2 hours and 13 minutes long. Apparently, this movie cost $1 million to make, which, of course,
It's a crazy
in the
budget.
early 20s
Yeah.
is tons of money. So it's an epic telling of the Robin Hood story, which must be one of the most adapted stories in cinema history.
Oh yeah.
It seems like every decade we get a new Robin Hood adaptation of some kind. I mean, we just had one in like 2018 with I think, was it Taron Egerton
Yeah.
and Jamie Foxx? Was it
Yeah.
Jamie Foxx in there?
Yeah. And then
Yeah,
not long before that, we had the Ridley Scott Robin Hood.
Russell Crowe
Yeah, Russell Crowe.
with Russell Crowe. We've had Robin Hood in television series. We've had Robin Hood in movies. We've
I
had
mean, just as
comic
much
books.
Sherlock Holmes is the other one. Is
That's
like,
another one.
yeah,
Yeah. When it comes to classic literature, they love readapting it over and over again. I mean, how many Frankenstein movies have we gotten?
yeah,
How many Dracula movies have we
or
gotten?
inspired by that are very much the same. Reinterpreted.
Yeah. And I'm
like
just
for
talking like straight adaptation. I'm not even talking like inspired by, like you
I
were
mean, like
saying,
for
or
instance,
like homages.
like for instance, like what's that one set one Elemental, or the one that Sherlock Holmes, like Elemental was in
Oh,
the
Elementary, the
Elementary.
television series?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
essentially Sherlock Holmes. I
but a
mean,
TV series.
I mean,
I mean,
shit.
they had.
I mean, shit, House is Sherlock Holmes. Uh,
In a medical sense,
yeah, if he was
yes.
a medical doctor, it would be Sherlock Holmes as a
Yeah,
I
kind of
mean,
yeah, idiosyncratic,
he has
odd,
this merry
quirky
band of
doctor.
doctors.
Yeah, who's
You know,
kinda he's a
Sherlock
he's
Holmes,
a
Robin Hood.
yeah, he's a prodigy asshole.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's but
Yeah, and of
yeah, I
course
mean,
we have the
it's
Sherlock with Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman
exactly. Yep.
with the BBC. That was a big, huge hit. I got to the point where they kinda had to stop doing it because them 2 as stars just got too big, and they just had other
It's one of them
projects that
things I
they
think they
were
could come
attached
back
to.
to if they ever wanted to. They
I think
could.
there's always an open thing with that, but I it's been years. It's been so many
Yeah.
years now. I think it's pretty much done. I know they have a quote unquote complete series Blu-ray set of Sherlock in the United States, and I'm pretty sure in the UK as well. So who knows how complete that is? Things get revived all the time. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But this is also interesting because this 1922 Robin Hood um, is officially titled Douglas Fairbanks's Robin Hood. That was like the official title of it. I guess to kind of put that star forward, and also apparently this movie is the first movie I think to ever have a Hollywood premiere at the Egyptian Theater, I think,
Huh.
or the Grauman's Theater, something like that. I'd have to look that up, but apparently it's the first one. But this is an epic movie. You can tell that there is significant budget when you watch this movie. You can watch it streaming right now, and it actually looks pretty good. So they must have gotten the digital form of the restoration that's used for this Blu-ray
Yeah.
because it looks really, really fantastic. I did not get to see the Black Pirate, but that looks like another swashbuckling
Yeah.
fare as well.
I
Um,
I will say I heard somebody talking about this. Like some people were confused that they thought this was one movie, Robin Hood and the Black Pirate. Like the way that the cover is, they probably could have used maybe different font for one of these movie titles on this
oh
cover.
yeah, not
'Cause
only
it's
that, but it only has the picture of Douglas Fairbanks
yeah,
dressed
as Robin Hood.
as Robin Hood, but
Yeah,
he also kind of looks like a pirate.
yeah. I don't know.
Like you just if you didn't know it was Robin Hood, you just saw this picture of Douglas Fairbanks, you'd be like, "Is he a pirate?" Because he looks like one. He's got
Yeah,
the headband on. He's got a sword. He's got a gun.
yeah.
It looks like he's
It's
ready to roll on the high seas.
just a little confusing from an outside. If you're just looking at the cover,
Yeah, and
I
also
would
you're
think
right.
yeah.
It does have the exact same font, so it looks like a one title movie.
Yeah, but it does
I
say
mean,
double feature. So I mean, if you're reading it, you should be able to figure it out. But to just look at it, it would look like one movie, you know. But uh, yeah, that sounds interesting. I mean, I'm always into looking at the different interpretations of popular characters. We got the Robin Hood films from Indicator not that long ago that I need to
oh yeah, the Hammer
the
ones.
Hammer Robin Hood films. So, I'm yeah, I'm. This is something I'll have to keep an eye on.
Oh,
What
definitely.
next? What else we got?
Oh, what else we got? Of course, we've let's move on to Kino. Why not?
Okay.
Let me get my Kino tab up if I can find it. There it is. So,
Aha.
haha, I found you. Not much in the way of Kino this week because we already talked about a bunch last week. So, first up here is just a confirmation of a release plus details. So, July 11th, we're getting Force of Evil getting a Blu-ray release, and it is coming with the introduction by Martin Scorsese, which I think was on the Olive Films Blu-ray release of this movie like a decade ago. So that's kind of the most important thing for me. It does have a new commentary by Imogen Sarah Smith. Really cool to see her on this. This is coming from a new 2022 4K restoration from Paramount Pictures and the UCLA and Film Foundation. So this is going to look amazing. This is a really underrated film noir starring John Garfield. I would highly recommend people getting this if they don't own it already. If you're a big fan of film noir, John Garfield was in The Postman Always Rings Twice. He ran all the way. Super underrated actor, in my opinion. Yeah, it's a really really good film. I highly recommend. I know we talked about it a little bit when it was announced. Um, yeah, so
Well,
definitely get it.
cool.
Moving on, we have another interesting re-release here. So this is going to be a 4K UHD re-release of William Friedkin's 1985 film To Live and Die in L.A. Um, This film stars a rather young Willem Dafoe, and it's gotten a Blu-ray release before, not too long ago. The Live and Die in L.A. had a Blu-ray release. Actually, had a couple of them. Holy crap!
Yeah, I
It
was gonna
had
say
one in
Shout
2010.
Factory. Yeah.
Yeah, it had one in 2010, one in 2011, which I think was just a re-release, and then it had a Shout Factory Collector's Edition Shout Select release in 2016, and that's out of print. So
That's the
if you've
one
got
I
that,
have that, yeah.
okay, then yeah, then that's a bit of a collector's item now, I would say, because we don't have it. But yeah, so this is exciting if you're a William Friedkin fan, if you're a fan of this movie. I know some people are going to be double dipping, some people are not big fans of double dipping, but I don't own the movie, so I guess I'm going to get it for the first time. I did watch it for the first time. Steven, have you ever seen it?
Yeah, it's been a minute since I think I watched it right around the time that I bought it, so it's been, like, 3 or 4 years,
Oh, nice.
I remember Defoe being pretty menacing in the movie, um, being pretty crazy, he's always playing a fucking crazy guy.
Yeah, that's like Willem Dafoe 101.
Yeah.
It is coming with I'm just doing a side by side comparison. It's coming with some of the same special features that the other one has, like Taking Chance, which is an interview with William Peterson, who is the star of this movie. I don't think a lot of people know who William Peterson is, because he's been doing television for like the last 20 years. But he was Will Graham in Manhunter, which is the Michael Mann adaptation of Manhunter. Um, and
Of the Silence of the Lamb, yeah, the
it's not it's the movie
Hannibal
Red
Lecter.
Dragon. Red
Yeah,
Dragon.
yeah,
That's the book that it's an adaptation of,
yeah.
and he was Will Graham in there. But yeah, it is coming with I think I think the same special features as that release from Shout Factory. So at least you're not losing anything there, and you're gaining the picture quality. So this is a 2-disc release. It's coming from, I think, a brand new 4K scan of the original camera negative. You get it on Blu-ray, you get it on 4K. I really dug this movie. It's Friedkin. I'm always willing to give Friedkin my money and time and effort. If you haven't seen the movie, it's kind of a gritty 1980s um, cop drama where William Peterson is actually a Secret Service agent who I guess hunts down counterfeiters and people like that, and he decide and one day his partner gets killed by a counterfeiter who happens to be Willem Dafoe, and now it's the whole movie is William Peterson hunting down Willem Dafoe's character and stuff like that. But William Peterson's character, he's got a lot of edge to him. He's kind of a down and dirty Harry type of cop, and he ends up getting partnered with this new guy who's more straight laced. So there's some confrontation there. It's a gritty, really solid '80s cop drama. I definitely dig it. William Friedkin is, I think, a great director, and I don't think a lot of his work gets a lot of love post his '70s work, which is like The Exorcist and The French Connection and Sorcerer, which is a fantastic film. But a lot of his other work past that doesn't get a lot of attention, which
Uh,
I really wish it
it's
should.
up and
Cruising is good too.
it's up and down. I mean, I think there's more of a cultiness to some of his later movies. Like recently, the one that got dropped by Kino, Bug. That
Oh yeah,
that
underrated movie
yeah.
in my opinion.
Of course, I think even Killer Joe, with McConaughey, people.
Oh, it's part of the reconnaissance.
Yeah, I think people have over the years, looked at that movie as being pretty interesting.
Yeah, from 2011, which
Yeah,
um I think was one of his more recent films. He hasn't directed anything in several
I was gonna
years.
say it's been. I don't think he's really done much. You'd have to run down some of his recent. I can't
Well,
remember.
he did direct that TV movie version of 12 Angry Men, which
Yeah.
recently also
Oh yeah,
got
yeah.
a Kino
Jack with
release. I
Jack
think
Lemmon and yeah,
yes. I think yeah, and that got released
it's
twice, I believe. Didn't it got released separately and it got released as part of the 4K of
12
the
Angry Men.
original 12 Angry Men,
Yeah,
the Sidney Lumet version.
yeah.
But recently, of course, he did Killer Joe, Bug. Um, he did The Haunted, which I've never seen. Rules of Engagement, Jade, which I don't think I've seen. Blue Chips, I haven't seen.
Oh, I've seen
There's a
Blue
lot of his
Chips.
stuff, yeah,
Blue
I haven't
Chips is
seen. A lot
that
of his '90s stuff, I really haven't seen.
Blue Chips, I think, is that movie that got, put out by, Imprint,
Oh, I did see that
that
film.
basketball
Yes,
movie. Yeah.
yes, it is,
The
with Nick
coach.
Nolte.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the
That
one that
was
was
pretty solid. That was
yeah,
a
dealing
tough.
with, like, corruption in college basketball, who would have
Yeah.
guessed? Um, yeah, so I have seen that, and then, yeah, To Live and Die in LA, but it's really that '70s one. I feel like he gets treated a lot similar to Francis Ford Coppola, where everyone just focuses on his '70s work and
Yeah.
completely ignores everything past that.
Yeah.
Or not completely, but just, like, they don't talk about it a lot.
He's also, like, a high opinion guy, like, like, likes to speak about film in general. Like,
Yeah,
he
his
kinda
interviews are great.
yeah, he's kinda like a Paul Schrader. He'll speak his mind and didn't give a shit, like,
Mm.
kinda thing.
Well, yeah, he's very notorious for telling people not to go to film school.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Like, yeah, I remember so
Yeah.
many interviews of him just like, "Yeah, just you don't need to go to film school, just watch Hitchcock." Pretty sure that
Yeah,
was, like, what he
yeah,
said.
yeah.
Which is I've kinda taken that to heart. I used to watch interviews with him, Peter Bogdanovich, people like that, and that's how I kind of got engrossed in a lot of their great storytelling and a lot of their high opinions about movies and people and things and whatnot, talking about the classics. Um, so I'm glad To Live and Die in LA is getting a release, another release, really. Yeah, this is something I'm looking forward to. But moving on from there, we've got a movie called The Perfect Weapon. Um, and the tagline
That
for this
sounds dirty. Sounds
is
dirty.
the tagline for this is "Just try him." Um,
Oh god. Now it
yeah,
sounds even dirtier.
that sounds even worse. It
I
does.
know, right?
So yeah, this is
Ugh.
a film from 1991. I'd not seen it. Really wanted to watch it for this episode, but I didn't get a chance to. Coincidentally, don't ask me how this lined up. So Dante Bosco is in this film. Do you know who Dante Bosco is?
No.
He was Rufio in Hook. That's probably where you know him
Okay,
from
okay.
the
Yeah,
most.
okay. Yeah.
So I follow him on TikTok, and occasionally he shares his residual checks that he gets for his past work, like how much
Yeah.
it is, where it's from, what studio, movie, whatever. He was in this movie. He shared his residual check that he got for this movie, and the next day they announced that this was coming out. That Kino announced this was coming out
Yeah.
on Blu-ray, and I was like, "What is it? What are the odds? What are
Ha.
the odds?" Just an interesting story. But yeah, I kind of want to see this movie. To be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I did I almost I think I almost tried to watch this myself, but, you know, I went another way, but, yeah, it looks, you got me with The Perfect Weapon. Just try him. It looks so schlocky that I have to at least give it a try.
No, it
Um,
does. It looks like a B movie action film from 1991.
yeah.
It's I mean, uh, IMDb really doesn't do the film justice with its um synopsis here. It just says an expert in Kenpo karate avenges his Koreatown friend slain by a mobster in Los Angeles.
I mean, it sounds like a Stegall film with not Stegall, like,
Yeah, I
I
can
mean,
tell
it's
you, Jeff Speakman, I think, is the main guy. James Hong is in this film because he's been in
you kn
hundreds of
you
movies.
know what's funny is, like, I kinda, like, half looked at the name of that lead actor, and the first name that popped in my head was Scott Speedman.
Oh, I knew you were gonna say that. I knew you were gonna say that.
And I
Talk
was
about
like, "That
someone who
can't be Scott Speedman,
yeah,
he was barely born then."
yeah. Talk about someone who's completely disappeared from just
Yeah.
everything. I remember
He
him in
was
the
in
Underworld
he
movies.
was in yeah, I was gonna say he was the werewolf guy,
He
he
was
was
in
in Underworld.
Underworld and Underworld 2, and that was about it.
This
I
guy could be Scott Speedman.
I guess I guess he could be.
Looks wise, kinda like Scott, not really, but,
Yeah,
yeah.
Mariska Hargitay is in the film as well. Um,
Hey,
yeah, I mean, there's a
it's the director of Kickboxer, the first
oh,
Kickboxer.
there's
So,
there's your
Mark,
Mark
Dissel.
Dessau.
Yeah.
Yeah, he also directed Kickboxer Vengeance. He also directed Bloodsport.
Oh, shit. Well, this is worth it
Oh, he's a
now.
producer on Bloodsport.
Okay, well, not as much now, but, no,
No,
but had
he only directed 2 things. He directed Kickboxer and The Perfect Weapon, but he produced more things. He produced, Death Warrant,
oh,
Bloodsport,
so
The Perfect
you just
Weapon.
went on that Van Damme train.
I
Um,
guess so, and then Street Knight with the K being Knight. It's
wow.
just like all '90s action movies.
Well, this guy sounds amazing. But have you ever seen Kickboxer?
Yeah, maybe. I'm
So
getting Kickboxer and Bloodsport confused.
well, they
I
they're
think I
all
have.
almost the same movie, but it's there's a scene. If I'm thinking of the right movie, hopefully I'm thinking of the right movie. But there's a scene where he's wanting to be trained by this guy, and so like one of the first things he has to do, other than being stretched apart by like ropes, and then we get to see him split in midair, which Van Damme loves to do splits. But
He is flexible.
yeah, but there's a scene where he like has to lay on the ground, and then the trainer guy's like ready to protect, and he drops like these coconuts on his stomach, makes him have to catch like these heavy balls like on his stomach, and it's like hilarious. I'm like, who would do this?
No, apparently
Stupid.
I have not seen Kickboxer. Do you want to hear something um completely interesting about this? I've seen Kickboxer 2.
You saw the shitty sequel
I
that
seen
came.
the shitty sequel because yeah, what's it called? Kickboxer 2: The Road Back? Yes.
That
You wanna know
isn't
why I
Van
saw
Damme like
this?
in it, but not really. He's like not.
I s Let me put it this way, if this came out in 1991, I probably saw it in 1992 because I probably me and my cousins or cousin rented it from or friends really rented it from Blockbuster,
Yeah.
and the reason why I don't know why we watched it, I don't know how we watched it, we may have rented it from Blockbuster, it may have been on TV, I don't know, but it starred Sasha Mitchell. Sasha Mitchell was on the show Step by Step, and when
Step
growing up in the
by
'90s,
step,
on Friday nights, a kid in the '90s, you were watching TGIF.
dude.
You were watching
Yes,
that lineup,
of
and
course.
Step by Step was on it. Sasha Mitchell played like
Step
this
by
airhead
step,
cousin on it.
day by day.
So that was our connection to it.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's when we
Wow.
got to that.
Phew. Damn.
Baffling. I don't even remember anything about that movie.
You know what
Kickboxer
we need
2.
to. You know when I'm thinking we should do a podcast at some point in the future when we're tired of doing this. Is a TGI Friday podcast where we just go through every episode of all the TGI Friday shows. Family
Oh,
Matters,
be
Step by
amazing.
Step, Full House. We'll just go through all of them.
That would be amazing. They're all on DVD if not by now, I think. So they're all able to be seen in some format.
Yeah.
Uh, for years and years, it took forever for that stuff to get to see the light of day. Don't ask me why. It's very interesting how like stuff that was on TV in the '90s, which was super popular, just didn't really make the transition over to the home media market um, as robust as you would have expected because of its popularity. Um,
I
we're
don't
still
know.
waiting on some shows. Like Malcolm in the Middle only had like one season put out on DVD, nothing else after that.
Yeah.
And what's his name? Bryan Cranston went on to be a superstar. You think they would have capitalized off of
Fucking
it?
Malcolm's a fucking race car driver now.
Mm, Frankie Muniz,
Frankie
yeah.
Nunez is a fucking race car driver. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I know. But moving on from there, let's move on from um what are we moving on from?
We're
The
moving
Perfect
on
Weapon.
from Perfect Weapon.
Yes,
We got into a tangent about everything that was like connected to that movie and forgot about the
except for
movie
that
itself.
actual movie.
Yeah, yeah. But the last thing we have here is something that involves William Powell, which we
Yeah.
love. And it's 3 films. It looks like it's like kind of part of a film series. And you got 3 films, a William Powell Philo Vance collection. It's 3 films. We have the Canary Murder Case, the Green Murder Case, and the Bertson Murder Case. So,
Yeah,
or Benson Murder Case, sorry.
yeah, these are all like uh the title characters portrayed by William Powell and he's solving like murders and stuff like that. It's kind of like him doing the Thin Man series before Thin Man series,
Yeah.
because this was several years before that, but
Less charming. Less
yeah, less
charming.
charming, less well received.
Yeah.
These films aren't as good as the Thin Man films. William Powell played a lot of those characters that were just like detectives, like charming detectives,
Yeah.
really. Um, yeah, so this is a 3-pack, not 3-pack, a triple feature of all those films. Kind of cool to see something like that being brought out of the archive. I'll watch anything and buy anything with William Powell, so I have no problem with this at all. Also, a couple of other interesting people in these films. Louise Brooks and Jean Arthur are in the first film. Jean Arthur's in the second film. Paul Lucas is in the third film. Um, Eugene Pallette is in the third film as well, the Benson murder case. I think Eugene Pallette was also in my man Godfrey. I think he played the father of the family that he becomes a butler for. I think that was Eugene Pallette. Don't kill me out there, classic film fans. Um, but these were all directed by Frank Tuttle. Frank Tuttle, who
Did he? Well, he part. I don't think he co-directed the first one. I think.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. But I got too excited there when I heard the name Frank
Not
Tuttle.
fully directed all by Frank Tuttle, but the first one also had Malcolm St. Clair was a co-director on the first one.
Ah, gotcha. So Frank Tuttle, I know because he directed This Gun for Hire. He directed Lucky Jordan. So he of course went on to direct um like some film noirs and stuff like that. And yeah, and he also directed The Glass Key. So he had a pretty long career going from the 20s all the way through the late 50s. Pretty long career.
Yeah.
So that is it.
Not quite Clint Eastwood long, but okay.
No. He's still going, I think.
Yeah. Jesus.
But that is it for Kino. So we're good. We're good on Kino. Let's move on to Warner Archive. Might as well stick in that classic film realm, I'd say.
Okay.
So we've got their June releases now. We feel like we just talked about their May releases,
We
but of
did.
course, June follows May, as the calendar keeps telling us every year. And we've got ourselves a great slate of movies, in my opinion. This is a solid, solid slate. Um, Steven, you want to run these bad boys down?
Sure. So starting here, we have a film called Angel Face from 1953. And then joining us in 1950, we have Caged. I hope this is a movie about Nicolas Cage.
I wouldn't hold your breath on that one.
Damn it. Luckily, I saw it, so I already knew. From 1950, also, we have The Damned Don't Cry. From 1953, we have Dangerous When Wet, another dirty title. Also from 1955, we have Land of the Pharaohs. And from 1958, we have The Old Man in the Sea. So quite a bit of title. This is a pretty large slate for Warner Archive. Usually it's like 4 maybe. So we got 6 on this one.
Yeah, it's a pretty hefty slate. So these are all pretty solid releases, at least from my perspective. The one
Oh,
that pops out at me is Angel Face because Robert Mitchum is starring in it, and it's a film that I've seen. It's got an audio commentary by Eddie Muller. So automatically gets my
bam,
bells going.
bam.
It's a film noir.
Well, yeah, he's on. Eddie Muller's involved. It's probably a
Yeah.
film noir. But yeah, all 4K restorations on all these films. So that's. I mean, we know that Warner Archive. If there's any plus about their releases, is that they all usually look fantastic.
Mm.
Um, uh, Varying degrees of special features on their releases, but they tend to usually have something. Um, yeah, I mean, I've seen a couple of these. I saw Caged, which is a film about a woman who gets put into prison, and it's kind of about how prison affects her over time. You know, somebody that is actually seems to be a generally innocent type of person, and how the system isn't there to rehabilitate them. It becomes we've seen a lot of films like this where it's about how prison life isn't about rehabilitation; it's more about oppressing people and kind of turns them into worse versions of themselves than they even went in. Um, so it's kind of interesting because it's a women's prison movie. It's not just a male prison film, which is usually what you would see. So thought that was pretty cool that a film in the 1950s about women's prison was out there. And then I also saw Old Man in the Sea,
Oh,
starring
nice. It's a Tracy.
Spencer Tracy. It's very much a Spencer Tracy show in this movie. It's essentially all him most of this movie, and he's a fisherman. He has this young boy who very much believes in him. Is very much helps care for him because he recognizes the old man as being somebody that works hard, but is also he's getting up in age and he needs help. And so the kid's a really empathetic kid. And so one day the old man goes out and he gets a hold of a big fish. And that's the story. I mean, like, I don't want to give away everything that happens, but essentially he has a battle with a big marlin on open sea, deeper than he usually goes. And then it's about how he tries to catch that fish and bring it back and whatnot.
Yeah,
So
it's based off of the Hemingway novel, Old Man in the Sea. It's kind of like man versus nature, man
yeah,
versus self, overcoming impossible obstacles, life lessons, the that type of stuff you can find in literature.
yeah,
But it is very much a one man show with Spencer Tracy. Um, Yet again, I'll watch anything with Spencer Tracy. So it was an interesting film. A lot of narration in it. If not narration isn't quite your thing, it's directed by John Sturges,
yeah.
which is cool. Um, but a couple other things I did get to see here. Land of the Pharaohs, which is directed by Howard Hawks. This is an epic movie. Holy heck. Um, this movie is done in probably one of the widest aspect ratios I've ever seen. It's a movie that is shot, I think, yeah, 255 to 1.
Woo.
Typically, CinemaScope is 235 to 1, maybe 239 to 1, somewhere around there. But this is like super CinemaScope. This was like the epic widescreen that you would see for like Ben Hur and stuff like that. And this movie is incredibly epic. It's not technically Technicolor. I think it was called Warner Color at the time, but because every studio had their version of Technicolor, because Technicolor was super popular. Like I think MGM had Metro Color and all this kind of stuff.
God,
But
all these companies are so vain.
I
Jesus
know
Christ.
they think the song's about them. But Land of the Pharaohs, um, there is if you watch this movie currently on HBO Max, there is a current introduction about 5 minutes long done by Martin Scorsese, who really goes to bat for this movie. Although he does admit that it's melodramatic and the story's not great, he does say that just everything else in the movie is just incredible when it comes to the set design, when it comes to the color, when it comes to the detail, when it comes to the epic filmmaking. It's Howard Hawks making, an epic film. And yeah, it very much is. And the movie, what is interesting is even though it is an epic film, it only clocks in, I think, at like an hour and 45 minutes. Yeah, it's 104 minutes long. It's not Cleopatra, it's not the 10 Commandments, it's not anything like that, but it has that same aesthetic to it. They probably sunk in tons of money to make that movie. What kills me is that intro is not here on this Blu-ray by Scorsese.
Hmm.
And it's like, why is this not on here? You have the files, clearly. If I can go on HBO Max right now and watch this, why not just put it on here?
That is
I don't know.
weird.
Maybe it is and they just not advertising it, and maybe they'll treat me and it'll be on there, but who knows?
Huh.
Um, but Dangerous When Wet is a musical starring Esther Williams. And this is a movie that is kind of like a romance. They call it a romantic aquacade, which I've never heard that word aquacade before.
Okay.
Williams, it's set around Esther Williams and her family is this family from Arkansas who are apparently swimming enthusiasts or they're just fitness enthusiasts, and they go around to like local fairs and they win like fitness competitions and stuff like that. But anywho, one day this promoter shows up who wants to fund or promote them in a swimming competition to swim the English Channel, and the guy's portrayed by Jack Carson. He's selling like this, I don't know, it's called liquid something or other, and he is sponsoring them, or his company is. And so they go to like the English Channel and she's training for this, but she ends up getting in a relationship, or ends up falling for this guy portrayed by Fernando Lamas, who's like this rich Don Juan type guy from France and whatnot. And she ends up having like a love triangle with her, Jack Carson, and Fernando Lamas. It's a fine musical film. It's charming for its time, but apparently the director of this film um, was known for doing musicals. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I'm trying to look up his name right now because I completely blanked on that. But "Dangerous When Wet" is kind of a misleading title. For the whole time I was watching it, I was thinking of, remember the
Vince,
Bon Jovi album?
Vincent Sherman?
Yes, is it Vincent Sherman?
Or I'm sorry, I looked at the wrong one.
No, there's 3 directors of it. Of course there are.
Jesus Christ.
Um, Charles Walters? Yeah, I'll go with the first one.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so Charles Walters, like, he worked on, um, Meet Me in St. Louis, which, of course,
That's a pretty big one. Yeah.
is a pretty big, a musical. I think he's the uncredited director of Gigi. He also directed Easy to Love. He directed, uh, a couple of films with, Judy Garland. Summer Stock is another musical. Easter Parade, another one. Good News, I think, is another Judy Garland film. Is that good Judy Garland? Can't tell. No, that's June Allison, but you understand what I'm saying, like, all of
Sure.
those kinds of movies. So it's very much in that same vein, and I know they've put out a couple of movies by Esther Williams, like Million Dollar Mermaid, I know got a Warner Archive release recently, and a couple of other ones too. I remember back in the day, they released a couple of Esther Williams collections through TCM, like Spotlight collections and those types of collections. So now that those movies are starting to get like the Blu-ray treatment, which is great because I was always eyeballing them, and now I can actually get these movies on Blu-ray. So it looks like my waiting is paid off
Ah,
in a way. Um, so that's Dangerous When Wet. Um, The Damned Don't Cry is starring Joan Crawford. I it's like a film noir starring Joan Crawford. I think this is the one directed by Vincent Sherman that you were
yes.
talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the one where Joan Crawford is pretty much kind of like an ultimate femme fatale. If I'm just reading the description, and I've seen the movie, but it's been a few years since I've seen it. Um, yeah, it's Joan Crawford. I'll buy and own anything with Joan Crawford and all that stuff. And then Angel Face, I I think Angel Face is directed by Otto Preminger.
It is.
It
It
is.
is.
This is a film that is interesting. So Gene Simmons start opposite Robert Mitchum in this film, and I think this was done around the time where Howard Hughes owned the studio where this movie was made, and he had a thing for Gene Simmons, and I think Gene Simmons like spurned him or something, and he wanted Otto Preminger to basically treat her like complete crap during the making of this movie. And Robert Mitchum picked up on that, and I'm pretty sure Robert Mitchum like slapped the heck out of Otto Preminger. Like I'm pretty sure he
Nice.
tried to kick his ass on set.
Nice.
I think that's the story. Don't quote me on that. Um, because I think there's a scene in here where Robert Mitchum has to strike Gene Simmons' character, and Otto just had him do it over and over again to the point where Robert Mitchum just slapped him and said, "Oh, is that how you want me to do it?" I think that's how the story
I
goes.
love it.
But look
Love it.
that up. Look that up if you don't believe me, or if I got it wrong. But yeah, this is a solid slate from Warner Archive, so I'm taking it. I'm taking it.
All right. All right. Did you now? I don't know if maybe I'm wrong, but does it look like the logo for the Warner Archive is a little different now on these
Oh
releases?
well, Stephen. Once again, in the Warner Brothers world, they've changed their logo because now they're Warner Discovery. So they've decided to redesign their logo once again, even though they just redesigned their logo a few years ago when they
Yeah.
were Warner Media when they merged with AT&T.
Yeah.
So they've changed it again. Yes, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah. I just thought it looked a little different. Um. So yeah, I thought I'd bring that up, but let's go over to well, we forgot about one little one-off, the
Mm,
Bronx Tale 30th
yes,
anniversary.
let's get to that now then.
So Bronx Tale, 1993 film, directed by Robert De Niro.
And starring
Yeah, and starring.
Robert De Niro.
This is actually a film I watched growing up a lot.
Mm.
Actually, it was on TV a lot.
You're not the
Um,
only one.
yeah,
Everyone I know has seen this movie, even like non-movie enthusiasts.
yeah.
They've seen this movie. I never saw this movie until like 2 days ago.
Yeah, it's one of them films. I think it was on like TNT all the time, and so I watched it all the time. And yeah, it's like kind of a coming of age, boy, kind of being raised by a mafia guy. I said, he gets a lot of his, you know,
Yeah, it starring Chaz Palminteri is the mafia guy. It's a movie that I don't. I guess it's similar, not similar to Goodfellas, but in a way. So this young boy, basically growing up in New York and surrounded by organized crime, he kind of gets into it at a young age, a la Henry Hill in Goodfellas.
yeah,
But he also comes from like he has like his father's like a good father
Yeah, I was gonna
portrayed by
say
Robert
working
De
class
Niro.
family. Yeah.
Yeah, like he's a bus driver, working class family. So the boy is torn between like his loyalty to his father and his loyalty to his surrogate father in the Chaz Palminteri
It's
character.
it's almost like the, without going into detail, it's almost like how The Departed is, where, like, they take young kids and they try to, like, bring them in early and, like,
Mm,
mold them,
yeah,
it's kinda like that, except, you get Robert De Niro instead of Jack Nicholson.
yeah.
So,
Apparently,
yeah.
this is based off of a one man play uh, by Chaz Palminteri, who did it in 1989. I think Robert De Niro saw it in 1990 and wanted to, like, immediately buy the movie rights to it to make it his directorial debut, which it ended
Cool.
up being, and they worked on the screenplay together to make it pretty damn accurate to the play itself.
Yeah.
Um, it's a Bronx Tale. It's another one where if you if you've watched just like a whole bunch of, mobster, organized crime, gangster related films, chances are this is one of the movies that you watched. I just for some reason never watched it.
Yeah,
It
sometimes these movies get biased. It is
so
com
it Yeah, go on.
I was gonna say it's coming out by Tribeca Films.
I was just gonna mention that you read my
Yeah.
mind. It's also only been released on DVD, I believe, through Focus Features, and it's never had a Blu-ray release here in the United States until now. This is coming out in September on both 4K as well as Blu-ray. So it's a movie that I think produced by Tribeca, which was started by Robert De Niro and amongst other partners in the late 1980s as a production company, and then of course created the Tribeca Film Festival, which still exists to this day, and they produce and acquire movies, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the connection, interesting connection there. Um, it's been available overseas for a while on Blu-ray and stuff, but never here. And it doesn't look so far. We have nothing in the way of special features other than extended interviews with De Niro and Chaz Palminteri, which apparently are new.
Yeah. It's, sometimes you just don't get the full package on some releases, but honestly, I kinda just want this movie, because it's
Yeah, I kind of just wanted my collection,
yeah.
because of the connection to Robert De Niro, and just
I
because
don't
I've
think he
never owned it.
directed he hasn't directed very much since. I think, he did that with The Good German. Was that him?
I'm actually just going to look it up right now to see what he's
Um,
directed. It can't be in the way of much. He's directed only two things.
yeah, The Good German's the other one, right?
Yeah, The Good Shepherd.
The Good Shepherd, that's what it was.
Oh, I didn't know he directed that.
Yeah,
That was actually one of the first DVDs I ever bought when I started collecting DVDs. I
huh,
think I still have it somewhere. And I
weird.
think and then I maybe upgraded to the Blu-ray eventually. Yeah, because that movie came out in 2006, and I started collecting DVDs heavily around that time, so I must have bought it when it came out.
Yeah,
And that movie was about the I think it was wasn't it like the founding of the CIA? Yes.
yeah,
The early history of the Central Intelligence Agency, AKA the CIA. Um, Yeah, it was written by Eric Roth, the author. Yeah, the movie starred like Matt Damon, Angelina Jolie, Robert De Niro was in it, Alec Baldwin, Billy Crudup, Michael Gambon, William Hurt. I remember when this movie came out in theaters.
yeah. It's kinda boring.
Oh, okay, okay.
I
Winter
remember it
cut.
being
All
pretty
right.
boring.
You know what? You're not the only person I've ever heard say that.
Yeah. It's fine. It's just kinda boring. Um, but moving on from A Bronx Tale, which I definitely think I will be picking up. Um, do we wanna end on the slate or we wanna end on the Criterion news? Because I think that's
Oh,
the
you're
last
talking about um
you
oh
mean
the Cauldron Film slate?
well, we got Cauldron Film Slate, and then we also need to talk about the Criterion news that we haven't talked about yet.
Yes. So let's go to Cauldron Films.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go to Cauldron Films. So Cauldron Films is putting out, I think, what's it?
3
One,
releases.
two, is it three movies?
Yeah. It's, The
Well,
Last Match.
we also have the Fun City one as
Ah,
well, but we'll
yes.
get to that.
The Last Match, Off Balance, and Top Line are the
Yes.
three movies we got.
So I got to see the last match and Off Balance. So Off Balance also has an alternate title called Phantom of Death, which is a much better title than Off Balance. I'll, t- I'll tell you that. The last match, when I heard the premise of this film, I wanted to watch it, and then I regretted when I was watching it.
Ah, hate it when that happens.
So, let me pitch this to you, Steven. Um, so this movie, oh man, how is it? So the quarterback of a professional football team, his daughter gets put in prison in some unnamed, unknown Caribbean country where I guess she's there on vacation with her boyfriend. She gets caught at the airport while she's leaving with drugs, and they put her in there. Apparently, they have very harsh laws against that, so he's got to go down there and try to get her out, but he just can't get her out. He's hitting all kind of bureaucratic problems. He even went down to the lawyer, to the I guess the best lawyer down there is portrayed by Martin Balsam in one of his last film roles ever. Um, and he- so what end? I'm just gonna not even spoil it because the premise of this movie. Um, his football team, who the head coach is Ernest Borgnine, decide to go down there and help him break her out of prison. And by doing so, they decide to don their pads and uniforms and have machine guns and all kinds of stuff, and they're going to attack this prison to break her out.
It sounds great.
On paper, it does. But then you actually get to you have to get to that part before it becomes interesting. Everything else before that is just this father going around and hitting dead ends in this unnamed Caribbean country, and whatnot, like
Oh,
hitting all kind of bureaucratic problems. But that's the premise of this movie. So when I heard that, I was like, this movie was actually made, wasn't it? Um, Yeah, it's just that's bonkers premise. Like, I don't even know how to pitch that to somebody.
you just
Um,
did. You just did
y
it, man.
yeah, they call it a
It's
'90s action spectacle. I guess, Charles Napier's in this film as well. Um, Henry Silva is in this film. Yeah, Ernest Borgnine, like I said. But that's the premise of that movie. This movie's getting an exclusive 4K restoration, and then a couple of special features as well. You're getting an interview with special effects people. Um, this is an interesting kind of schlocky Italian action film from 1991. Yeah, but
yeah.
off balance. Yeah, I don't even know how to transition out of that. It's shot by Giuseppe Rossellini, who shot Duck You Sucker. My
Wow.
God,
Hmm.
my God. Um,
Has Michael York in it from Austin Powers?
yes. Well, that's the second film. That's Off
Well,
Balance.
that's what I thought we were at. Was that off
Oh
balance?
no, now we're up to Off Balance
Okay.
or
All right.
Phantom of Death, which is a much better title. So I saw this movie. Michael York is the lead in this film, and Donald Pleasance is in this film as well. And Donald Pleasance is playing this detective who is looking for this, I guess, serial murderer who happens to be Michael York. Not a really a big spoiler there. Happens early on, but Michael York's character also has this disease where he's aging rapidly, so it's making it difficult for Donald Pleasant's character to hunt him down. Also, Michael York's character, while he's aging rapidly, his mind's also deteriorating as well. Like he's becoming more and more
Jesus Christ.
psychotic,
Man,
and then he's calling up Donald Pleasance in the middle of the night and like taunting him, which is kind of interesting. And
weird.
that's that movie. And yeah, some of the kills are brutal, and this guy's just like slowly deteriorating, and the way the makeup effects work, just making him more and more grotesque and monstrous looking. Kind of a Jekyll and Hyde situation going on here a bit. Um, but yeah, this is getting a 2K restoration. It's directed by Ruggero Diodato,
Ah.
who um, I, didn't he direct Cannibal Holocaust? Or is that am I thinking of somebody
Uh,
else?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, he did direct Cannibal Holocaust. Um, yeah, he directed.
He recently passed away,
Yeah,
I
he did
believe.
recently pass away. I know Severin puts out a lot of his stuff, as well as Vinegar Syndrome. I think he's put out some of his stuff as well. Um,
Did he do what
but
was it? House by the Cemetery? Was that him as well?
I
Or
think that
no,
was
that's
Fulci. I think that
Fulci.
was
Yeah,
Fulci.
that's Fulci.
He did House on the Edge of the Park.
That's what I meant. That's what I
Yes,
actually meant.
he
Yes.
did that
House.
right after Cannibal Holocaust.
There you go.
So yeah, so very grotesque film. And in this last film, Top Line, I did not get to see. After I watched Phantom of
Okay. I
Death.
started to watch Top Line. I
Okay.
started watching it, and then I got so sick of watching it because it was in such bad quality. I was like, "This ain't fucking worth it." Uh, so I just stopped. But it does have Franco Nero in it, and it's like kind of like a Romancing the Stone, but
Okay.
but where he finds a UFO, and then like it's like about like getting people to believe him and shit, and then like it. I didn't get that far to get way deep into it. Like I got to the part where he discovers the UFO, and I was like, this shit is in such bad quality. I'm getting sick of watching it, so I just stopped watching it. But I could tell you, it seemed a little like it dragged a little bit. I mean, I will say Franco Nero is always a great presence on screen, so he kind of keeps things interesting. But when he looks blurry from a freaking shitty VHS YouTube rip, uh,
Mm.
it's not, you don't get the effect. So but Franco Nero is always somebody that I'm interested in. I'm glad we're getting more stuff of his that's not Django. Um, like, or his, anything, because we got the Nero set coming out from Radiance. I'm really excited to get all
Oh
them.
yes.
Um, and just, yeah, I mean, if there was out of the three, okay, I haven't seen in the other two. The second one, Off Balance, does sound kind of interesting, but this top line might be one that I definitely kind of want to watch because it seems kind of up my alley. But yeah, I mean, Cauldron's always got some interesting titles. And yeah, these are all kind of all different, but all kind of in a slocky,
Oh yeah, they're
realm.
very much in the Cauldron vein, I think. Um, yeah, I would say, I mean, for me, I always enjoy seeing Donald Pleasance on screen,
Oh yeah,
even
yeah,
when he's screaming and just like desperate. I mean, it just brings me back to when he's in Halloween and just
yeah, yeah.
freaked out by Michael Myers. I mean, he carried a lot of those sequels, in my opinion. Um, so I always like seeing him on screen. I guess he's kind of playing the Dr. Loomis detective type character in this, anyways. Kind of hunting down another monstrous type creature in Phantom of Death. But I'm just, yeah. So let's switch gears from there to Radiance has another announcement. Not Radiance, Fun City. Sorry, I'm losing my mind here. So Fun City has an announcement for September 12th. Actually, is a double feature released. The title of this release is called Fatal Femmes, and these are two films. One is called Neige, and the other one is called The Bitch.
The
Neige is just the
bitch.
French word for snow. That's
Yeah.
what that is. Yeah, Fatal Femmes is a two-film collection of early '80s French urban set noirs directed by women, Juliette Berthaud and Jean-Henri Rogers, Neige, and Christine Pascal's The Bitch. Um, yeah,
I love it.
that's yeah. It's so Neige the Snow. This drama about a barmaid caught up in events beyond her control is the first film directed by Juliette Berthaud, and also based on her own concept for the story. The barmaid played by Berthaud has been trying to take care of Bobby, a teenage drug pusher who was in over his head. That damn teenager's getting into nonsense again. Before she can put him back on track and get him out of the drug underworld, the young man is killed while being chased by narcotics agents. Depressed by his death, but not derailed, she finds herself trying to help out another user, a gay user who depended on Bobby for his supply of drugs. Um, yeah, this goes on to be way more descriptive than I think it needs to be. Stop giving away the whole plot here. But the bitch, a policeman on night patrol, picks up a young girl and rapes her. The following day, she complains and he is given 6 years in prison. On coming out of prison, he gets work as a private detective and is hired to watch a fashion seller who turns out to be that particular woman who has never forgotten him.
Hmm.
That's a grisly description.
Damn.
Um, yeah, I think these both got 4K restorations, or at least Neige got a 4K restoration. But you can watch the trailer for that now. This was another one I think that was announced by Letterboxd, so that's
Yes.
why it maybe it flew under the radar for some people. But it's Fun City, so
Yeah.
I will take the flyer on them and take whatever they put out.
Yeah. I will too. And if they're kind of like noirish, which it seems that that's kind of what these movies are. They're kind of like these neo noir type of female led directed films. That's we're gonna get. That sounds great to me. I got them, but there are one of the labels that I kind of complete on. So
Right, right. So you're kind of locked into them
I'm already locked in.
no matter what. But yeah, let's move on now to there's a couple of other ones here. I think we could move on to our final big news. Actually, one more news thing. So we were right when we talked last week about the Black Hat release from Arrow when it was pushed to September. It looks like they did get their hands on the director's cut um, of the film. Of course, the
Yeah.
preferred cut, I guess, by Michael Mann, but they are only putting it on, I believe, a separate Blu-ray disc in that set, so it won't be in the 4K format that I think that the actual cut will be in. At least, unless they change that, that's my gist of it. So that's why they delayed that release. Um, yeah, just confirming that. But now let's move on to the Criterion and Janus film team up news. Even though they've
Yeah.
already been teamed up, this is another team up.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So they're teaming up to create a new line. I guess you could call it. There's a new sub label of Janus and Criterion, a home line called Janus Contemporaries. So for first run international releases, DVD, Blu-ray editions of these films will also coincide with their premieres on the Criterion channel. So one thing I'd brought up not too long ago is that I would like to see a lot more films that are getting introduced on physical media have some type of way to see them on streaming so that we can, check them out before we decide to spend money to buy them. Well, here's a here's a label that's gonna basically do that for you. They're gonna get the rights to essentially, put it out in every form. They're gonna put it out digitally, then they're gonna be like, here's the physical media release. Here you go. And so I like this. I mean, I like that we're getting something a little, you know, uh, even though Criterion kind of takes care of every kind of facet of film in a way, except for maybe some genre stuff that they don't put a lot of horror in their collection, but um, they seem to put a lot of contemporary stuff in, especially recently. So
Yeah, and this is, I think, just a further push forward of that concept
yeah,
of putting a lot of modern, independent stuff. Really, a lot of these are films that make their rounds at film festivals that a lot of us don't get to see because a lot of us don't go to the film festivals or take part in them for whatever the reason may be. So these are, getting out there to the people in more modern ways, streaming than physical media. One going hand in hand with the other. And some details about these releases. So the Blu-ray and DVD editions. I'm reading this from Criterion.com. The Blu-ray and DVD editions will include new interviews with the filmmakers produced by Criterion as part of the Criterion Channel series, Meet the Filmmakers, and will retail for $29.95 the Blu-rays and $24.95 the DVDs. So cheaper than their Criterion editions, I would
yeah,
say, when it comes to regular priced. Um, so I don't know in the way of how widely these are going to be distributed in terms of where you can get them. Like I don't know if Amazon's going to sell them. I have no idea about that. I would assume so. I don't know if these are going to be limited releases in any way or whatever the case may be. But I know that they are coming eventually. Hopefully sooner rather than later. I would hope. Um,
yeah, and that recent, and they do have some info on some of the stuff
we
that's
do.
going to come out
Yeah,
first.
we do have the movie titles for this first batch
Yeah, and then we've already known that EO is going to come out. Most recent film that won the jury prize at Cannes. Um,
last year. Yes,
it's gonna be
it
the
was.
first
It was
first
also
release.
nominated for best foreign film when it came to the Academy Awards that just happened. This movie's been on up there on the Criterion Channel for months now,
Yeah,
and I've seen it. It's an amazing film. It's a film all about the life of this donkey, and you end up falling in love with this donkey and his little adventures and whatnot. Reminded me a lot of Spielberg's Warhorse,
ah,
but not quite. Not the Spielberg. It doesn't have the Spielbergian charm to it. It's way more simplistic, way more understated, but still incredibly impactful. But I also the next film in here, No Bears, is another film that I did get to watch. This is also streaming on the Criterion Channel right now. This is an Iranian film that is also just an amazing film by a director I had never seen any of his work before, Jafar Banahi. Banahi, yeah. and this was the winner of the Venice Film Festival Special Jury Prize last year as well. And this film is interesting because it's dealing with an understated political themes, understated cultural themes. So uh, Pahani plays a director in this film, so kind of a meta aspect of it, and he's been banned by the Iranian government from making movies and from leaving the country. So he sneakily is doing that while also hiding out, really hiding out in the small village along the border of Turkey. And he's overseeing the viewing of this or the making of this movie via um like Skype or something like that, some type of video calling or video chatting through his assistant director. But he's also taking like photographs of the people in this local village, and there's this one particular photograph that gets him in a bit of trouble with the locals. I don't want to say what it is of or what it is about. I could say that it's a simple rudimentary, like, just nothing photograph, at least to our perspective, but into the perspective and the traditions of this small village, it's incredibly important, and it gets him in a lot of trouble. And the film is really trying to state about like kind of cultural oppression, traditionalist ideas are kind of destructive in many ways. All this kind of political things are thrown into this movie. Very understated, very simple film, but also very brilliant. I recommend this movie to anyone. It's a really, really good watch. But the rest of these films I haven't been able to see, but you can go on,
Yeah.
Steven.
No, no. It just says here at the end of the article, it says that there are some future releases that maybe could be looked at this recent Cannes Film Festival, including Charismaki and Curator Film. Their latest films could be,
Could we
which
finally get Shoplifters on Blu-ray?
fuck, please, yes,
At least here. They just
yeah.
doesn't exist here, and
I
that
mean, I
movie's
have it, but I have the release. I think overseas from who was it that put it out? Come on, Andrew, you
yeah,
got
I know, I
this.
gotta probably check up on that. Um, it's not see. So you've got the, from Thunderbird Releasing? That's who released it in the UK.
Maybe that's it. I didn't feel like that was the right answer, but maybe that is.
Uh, I don't know what country you got it from, Steven. You gotta
I think it was the UK, so that might
well,
be
that's
it.
the only one that's been released in the
Oh,
UK.
then that might be it then. But yeah, we need a good release of that. We need a good release of all Koreeda films. So all of
Very
them need
much
to
so. They've
be,
got more releases overseas than we've got here.
yeah,
But we've got a few more films that they've announced. Um, The Innocent, which is a film I think by the actor Louis Garrel. Um, yeah, it's a French film that he directed, and I know him from being an actor more than being a filmmaker. So I didn't even know that he was doing filmmaking. He's been in movies like he was in Bertolucci's The Dreamers. He was in Little Women,
yeah,
the Greta Gerwig film Little Women. He's been in like a lot of a lot of films that maybe people have seen, maybe haven't seen. It looks like a lot of French films. Um, but yeah, I wanted to check that out, but these movies are really, really hard to find. Um, that's the one thing I've noticed. A lot of contemporary films that are at film festivals are really hard to find to watch if you don't watch them at these film festivals. And if they don't get picked up for distribution, some of these sit around for years and don't get picked up for distribution forever
yeah.
in any way. And if they do, who knows when they're going to get released. Um, but Steven, do you got the rest of these movies? I'm trying to find.
Well, I see here, Godland, and I'm not even gonna try to pronounce the guy's name. Hanor Palamason. Sounds
Not
great.
good guess.
Sure. Uh, the Dardanis, um, Tori and Lokita. Um, yeah. The Eight Mountains is another one I'm seeing here from Felix von Grotingen and Charlotte Vandersmix. Um, so yeah, that's the only ones left I'm seeing
Did you
here.
see? Yeah, you said Tori and Lokita, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that movie looks very interesting. I believe that's a um. Yeah, that's I forgot which country that's from. but it looked very, very fascinating. It looked like a movie that I definitely tried to track down, and I just couldn't find it anywhere. Um, yeah, I'm kind of upset that I didn't get to see these until now. Now it makes you want to watch them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I think it's a Belgian film.
Okay.
Yeah, in Belgium today, a young boy and adolescent girl who have traveled alone from Africa pit their invincible friendship against the difficult conditions of their exile. Very interesting. Sounds incredibly existential,
Well,
and
what I like
yeah,
about this line is, like you said, you know, a lot of these films don't get to see the light of day unless you've seen them at the festival, and you know, it's kind of you know, newer independent films are films that really need the help, you know, and sometimes they don't get a chance to become great, you know, films. You know, they don't get a chance to be appraised at all because they don't get seen by enough people. So if Criterion and Janus are going to start putting these out on their channel, and then also on some of them on physical media, I'm sure they're going to use the channel as a way to maybe gauge interests in a way for some of these releases. But I think that that's a great way to. It's a great sector of film because I think we a lot of times look back a lot, which of course I think we should. But there are also new films that are coming out all the time that just don't get seen, and so I think this is a good move from Criterion to kind of create a new. You know, we kind of got rid of the what's the name of the line, their DVD line, their
they're essentials.
no, not the essentials, the other ones, the
Oh, the
ones,
Eclipse box sets.
the clip series. The clip series kind of went away. They just stopped making them, and you know, their DVD probably at this point shouldn't be putting out DVDs as their main thing anymore. But like, um, this being a way to like start a new kind of sub label within Criterion that focuses on a specific sector, I think is a good idea. Um, it creates interest in a specific place in a collector sense. People are going to maybe want to collect all these, you know, if they're numbered separately, if they're like, it's a good move, I think.
I'm very curious about the whole package art of it all. Are
Yeah,
they going to be in the clear, the clear plastic
I'm
Criterion
assuming it's going to be
cases?
similar.
Yeah,
I just it'll be a Janus contemporaries, new logo, all that stuff. I think, and it'll be very similar packaging wise. I don't think they're going to start upping the packaging game, you know. But yeah, I mean, I think this is cool. I'll be interested to see this stuff coming out. So, is that it? Is that it
I
for
believe
today?
that is everything.
All right. Well, once again, thanks to Justine Smith for joining us. It was a really fun talking with her, and once again, don't forget next week, this coming up weekend, May 21st, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are going to be doing this show, Chasing Labels, live on YouTube. Of course, there will be an audio version released later if you don't catch it. And you can, of course, go and watch the video later as well. But we will be doing it live, so you guys can come in and interact with us as we run down the Blu-ray announcements from this week. And then also we will hopefully maybe we'll have a fun other segment to do, and then we should be seeing hopefully some previous guests from our first 100 episodes popping in and saying hey. So yeah, that should be fun. And with that said, Andrew, where can you be found?
You can find me on Twitter at Cabzilla06, as well as our YouTube channel, Chasing Labels.
And you can find me on Facebook, Stephen Billings, or at my letterboxd at Stephen Billings. And you can find me at the other Chasing Labels pages, whether it be our Twitter or Instagram. You can find the audio for the podcast at Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and other places. Thanks again for listening. And hey, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.